trying to get us up on YouTube, but Griffin tells me we are. I'm not seeing it. I want to be available to all of the fine people that watch us on YouTube, and I don't know what's going on. There we go. It's up with yesterday, though, so we need to fix that. And we'll get that straightened away, and then we'll try to do today's show. Hi, good morning. It's a Thursday edition, I promise, of Glenn Clark Radio. I'm Glenn. He's Griffin, and I mean, I can't make it any better, but I'm not surprised. With respect, it was Jacob DeGrom against Brandon Young. The game went about the exact way that I thought it was going to go. And this is a tough conversation to have because it requires the thing that I brought up a couple of times this week, and then I brought up again when we were chatting with Buck Showalter yesterday. Like, I just don't think this is a very good team. I think it's a team that has some decent pieces. I think it was poorly constructed. I think it's tough when you don't have a manager. I think that even teams that aren't very good sometimes win baseball games. That's the way that it goes. And so when we wanted to focus on a better record, and we wanted to suggest that everything had changed dramatically under Tony Mansolino, it just wasn't true. They're not a very good baseball team. The macro and micro are both kind of significant in this moment. There are peripheral issues that go beyond just the current record and the current issues that they face. There are big picture problems that, in a world where you're pointing towards maybe trying to solve this for next year, become even more problematic. Like Gunnar Henderson's lack of power. What exactly is Adley Rutschman? Those things go beyond just the moment. The moment is they're not a very good baseball team. And so when you saw that it was Brandon Young facing Jacob DeGrom, it's not just to say, like, well, yeah, but you couldn't have expected them to only get one hit. Go back and listen to yesterday's show. Not at all. I mean, we openly talked about the possibility that there could have been a no-hitter last night. A team that has been struggling to collect hits at all, facing a pitcher who's overwhelming on a hot night where the pitcher that you're throwing out isn't going to give you much of a chance. Oh, that smelled like a combination for exactly what was going to happen last night. It's tough, man. It's tough because you don't feel better for piling on. What does that do for you? You already got your pound of flesh. They already fired the manager. If now it's, I want another pound of flesh, so fire the general manager, I think you're going to be disappointed. I don't think that's going to come until the earliest, the end of the year. And even then, I don't know. Now it's just the exercise of, I want to have baseball. By the way, this is the worst possible time. At least during, like, the NBA, in the years of the Orioles where we knew they were going to be bad, you had the playoff season to distract you. There was something else to watch and to focus on. Right now, there's nothing. I mean, even the next U.S. soccer match is Sunday night. It's not even on up against an Orioles game. There's not. I guess maybe last night you might have poked over and watched some of the NBA draft. It was a fascinating pick that was made by the Portland Trailblazers. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I know. They took
I don't know if
one of our peers, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know if we can say peer.
He does the same thing we do, doesn't he?
You got that? Do you have that available to us?
Oh, yes.
Oh, boy. I thought maybe the third time that I nodded my head at that computer might have
is
registered there, but nothing like the radio timing that we have over here. Nothing quite like that. I've told you guys before that at some point we're going to be moving to an hour-long show. And when we do, and I'm getting closer to that date, it's happening. It's not an if, it's a when. That is occurring.
Should I just
but
cut
it's
you off?
In part because we're going to clean up things like this.
It took me like 2 seconds.
I'm not sure that that's an accurate reflection.
This was the 11th overall pick of the NBA draft.
It was a big moment last night in the NBA draft.
So the Portland Trailblazers select Colin Cowherd here. This is a young man with the ultimate bet on yourself story.
I mean, no disrespect.
So the Portland Trailblazers.
Young, is that what we're going with to describe? How old is Mr. Hurd?
Mr. Cowherd?
How old is the Herd man? How old is he? I just don't know if we can go with young.
Well, no,
I think that might be a bit.
He's 21. I mean, he is pretty young.
No, Mr. Cowherd.
Oh, Cowherd.
Yeah.
Cowherd.
Not.
Yeah, I mean, he's.
Yeah. How old is?
I don't think he's 21.
I don't think so.
He's been around for. He's 61.
I don't know if young would be the word that I would come up with, but enticing pick from the Portland Trailblazers last night. So perhaps last night you were able to distract yourself with the NBA draft. And congratulations to Derik Queen. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more of the draft later. And yes, Cedric Cowherd is the name of the young man that was selected.
And a cool story because he went from a D3. He was a
D3.
D3.
Yeah, he was a D3 kid. That's correct. Perhaps you distracted yourself slightly with that. But they're fewer and further between now that the playoffs are over. This is the time of year where you need the Orioles to get you through, and they're just not going to be doing that. So, what do you do now? I don't think you're fixing it. And I think that was the reality of when Tony Mansolino took over. Like, we could always say, hey, there's always a chance. What happened to all that 1 in a million talk? Of course there's always a chance. And there's even still always a chance today. The season's not over. Who knows? Everything could be different tomorrow. But it's sort of the same thing as blaming it on Brandon Hyde. With respect, the team wasn't put together to be able to go win something. The failure is on the front office. And the players. I can't absolve them of that. I love Cedric Mullins. I think Cedric Mullins would be the first person to walk in and say, I have failed. This is a failure that falls on me. I don't know if Chadwick Tromp would say the same thing, because I don't even know that Chadwick Tromp knows what city he's playing in currently. But, jeez. I mean, come on, man. The guy's he's a mercenary. He's not actually an Oriole. Who the hell did they sign? They apparently won a Gold Glove at some point for the Rockies. They signed another catcher this week. That was
Stallings.
Jacob Stallings?
Yeah,
is that his?
So.
Yeah.
It wasn't Care Stallings.
I don't think so. Thank you for your service.
Care Stallings is already in the organization.
Got that going for him, which is nice. I don't believe it was former college basketball coach Kevin Stallings either. Does Kevin Stallings still have a job? I'm pretty sure he's out of a job. They hired him at Vanderbilt. It was a disaster. I'm pretty sure he's unemployed at the moment.
I'm trying to think. I don't think I can play the Stallings game.
Oh, yeah, you're going to be really struggling to...
Kevin Stallings' wife, Lisa Stallings.
Right, yes, you knew that. She's, of course, famous for... Being Kevin Stallings' wife. Where is Kevin Stallings employed currently?
He is a former basketball coach. No, he is not.
Yeah, that's what I figured. It was kind of a mess down at Vanderbilt. The moral of this story being, wasn't Jackie Stallings a coach? I think I might have just won the Stallings game.
He was most recently at Pitt, actually. Kevin Stallings was before Vandy. He had 3 seasons at Pitt.
Before Vandy, you
After
say?
Vandy.
After Vandy.
Yeah, that was 2018, though.
Maybe it went better at Vandy than it did. Maybe I'm thinking of his time at Pitt, and that was where it was a mess. Somewhere he went, it was a mess. sucks, like really bad. But whatever. This is a conversation that no one needs to have. This is not a topic that anyone needs to be concerned about. The moral of the story is that the Orioles aren't very good. And that even teams that aren't very good sometimes win games. And that was why it was over the top to overreact to the games that the Orioles won. The totality suggested that this still wasn't a very good baseball team. Again, they could go win 4 out of their next 6. I don't think they will, but they could. The math would remain a problem. What we've seen, I think what we're overreacting to today is now the wild nature of how the last week has gone. Blowing an 8-0 lead in a game where you didn't have a hit for the final 7 innings of the game. Nearly getting no hit on Saturday by Clark Schmidt. Scoring in only 1 inning over the combined 2 games on Saturday and Sunday. Runs in only 1 of 18 innings played. And then turning around and saying, let's do the same thing. Because over the last 2 nights, the Orioles have scored runs in...
They scored runs.
They played 19 innings over the last 2 nights.
They played 1.
They've scored...
They've scored in 1
They've scored in 1 inning.
Yeah.
So in the last 5 games, they have 2 different stretches of 2 games where they scored runs in 1 inning. Now, I get it. It happened to be they scored 5 in one of those innings, and I'll take 5.
You know what's better than 5?
6?
Yeah.
Maybe scoring another one at some point. This is and continuously flirting with being no hit. It's now 3 times in 5 games they've seriously flirted with being no hit. That's something. And that's after, again, they didn't get a hit in the last 7 innings of
wait.
last
They're
Wednesday
trying to get
games.
hits?
Yeah, I know. It's a thought. It's a thought. In the end, they're just not a very good baseball team. There's not a whole lot of other ways to say it, and that I hate that, but the evidence is what it is. I always think, like, if I say something, what would the players say back? I'm sure the players would say they know they can be better than this. Okay, yeah, I think that they can be better than this. This is outrageous. And yes, Jacob DeGrom was phenomenal last night. Like, I don't want to take anything away from Jacob DeGrom. He looked exceptional. I think Jacob DeGrom would have succeeded against a lot of teams last night. But does that absolve the Orioles? You heard Tony Mansolino after the game try to... Well, this was more about Jacob DeGrom. Probably. But, like, that doesn't shake what happened against Clark Schmidt and Jacob Latz and the Rays bullpen. Like, you don't get to say, well, this one sort of stands alone. Does it? Or is this kind of what you are? And this is the damnedest thing. You're going to face other really good pitchers, including next week you're going to face Jacob DeGrom again. I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Oh, shoot, are they?
Yeah.
Oh. Hey, but at least we get our ace on the mound.
Which one?
Trevor Rogers.
That's true. Trevor Rogers.
We got a different ace.
Well, wait. I thought Trevor Rogers would pitch on. Oh no, because they're going 6-man. That's right.
Yeah.
So Trevor Rogers.
According to roster resources.
Yeah, he won't
Rogers
pitch until Monday. Yeah, he won't pitch until Monday. They might want to mix that up for Trevor Rogers. They might want to get him on the mound a little bit more frequently. They might not want to hold off on old TR. They're not a good baseball team, and we know that. Like, there's too much evidence. My take, because that's the society that we live in, we need a take. My take is that the Orioles needed to hire a manager when they fired Brandon Hyde. My take is that the Orioles needed to hire a manager when they were winning some games under Tony Mansolino. My take remains that they need to hire a manager. Not because I think it's going to make a difference in whether they get into the postseason this year. I think that is damn near sealed. I think they need to do it because what we've seen in the last week, this is where it starts to seem rudderless and hopeless, and like these problems could linger for some time. And there needs to be an amount of accountability. And I don't know how that's coming with someone who's a lame duck manager. And I'm not trying to be over the top about it. I'm not trying to suggest that like the players aren't listening to Tony Mansolino or don't respect him or anything along those lines, but I think it requires accountability, like serious accountability. And just watching some of these at-bats, they just don't look like guys that have any interest in being a part of things. I think the Orioles need a manager. And they've needed a manager. Once you determined that it wasn't working, the answer was never going. This thing where we hold up, well, look at what happened with Rob Thompson in Philadelphia. Right, that's the one. There's a reason why you always bring it up. Because there isn't another one. You can't say, hey, there's this history of interim managers having great success and turning teams around. There is not. Get a manager. And that doesn't, again, I'm not saying that to try to fix this year. This year is a wash. The only argument for not hiring a manager at this point is the question that we've also asked. Are you not certain that Mike Elias is going to be here? Because if you're not, I can understand why it is that you wouldn't want him to be the one hiring the next manager. I do get that. But we're kind of playing fast and loose. We're talking about this being a team that at the trade deadline needs to make decisions trying to retool for 2026. But do you see anything that makes you think right now that this team is a couple of pieces away from being a World Series contender in 2026? There are a couple of pieces and dramatic changes from the pieces they have. Like the path to being a World Series contender in 2026 is Gunnar Henderson isn't this guy. And Adley Rutschman isn't the guy that we've seen for a year, a calendar year. And Coby Mayo is dramatically advanced. And let's be honest, as good as he's been, Jackson Holliday is still an even better version. And Kyle Bradish comes back and is a guy that we haven't seen for how many years has it been since Kyle Bradish has?
It was 2023, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Grayson Rodriguez finally ascends to being a top-of-the-rotation pitcher. And they add multiple pieces. And the way I say it, it sounds like there's a stronger argument for a teardown than there is for, but I'm not going there. I'm not there yet. Part of it is I want a manager in place to see if you can't solve some of these problems internally over the course of the rest of the season. The story of the rest of the season is how are we going to feel about Coby Mayo and Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman when he comes back and, frankly, Colton Cowser and, Jordan Westburg would be the one guy that I think we all feel about the same way about. Like, I think we all like Jordan Westburg and think but he needs to stay healthy, and that to me is the story of the rest of the season.
Gary Sanchez, obviously.
Yes, obviously. A very important part of the story of the rest of the season. That's a very good point. That, to me, is why I want a manager in place. Because the ability to win in 2026 is now based on, are you a couple of pieces away? Because I'm not sure you are. That to me is the storyline moving forward. And this is a tough conversation to have, right? Like, some of this falls on these guys. I'm not really trying to go war on Tony Mansolino. Like, I don't blame him. This is I'm not even supposed to be here today type of situation. We'll get there. One of these days, we'll get there. I don't know, man. The trade deadline, the biggest conversation we're going to have is the trade deadline for the next few weeks and what they're going to do. And, in that way, you hope Zach Eflin starts pitching again. And in that way, you hope
Dean Kramer starts pitching again after what Buck
said. Buck
Yeah.
suggested they could try to move Dean Kramer. Look, man, if there's a market for him, it's a tough conversation to have because it's easy to say, well, you don't really have pitching, but Dean Kramer is kind of part of that problem.
He's going to leave and he's going to become Jake Arrieta.
I
can already see it.
I don't think he had the stuff that Jake Arrieta. We knew Jake Arrieta had the stuff. It just didn't. He certainly doesn't have Jake Arrieta stuff, but to say he couldn't be better, absolutely. I could see a scenario where he finally becomes the consistent middle-of-the-rotation pitcher that we've all thought Dean Kramer was capable of being. The Jake Arrieta thing is just one of the most infuriating things ever because we all knew how talented he was. Just didn't work. Whatever. It's not the point. Point is, we're going to look at it, and that's going to be the thing. But every time we talk about the trade deadline, we say it should be about retooling. It should be about, you should be willing to acquire players that have major league experience or a major league ready. It shouldn't just be you're looking to pick up single A prospects because you should be trying to retool for 2026 to go make a run for it. And I still today believe that's true, but I'm getting closer and closer to wondering if it isn't. And those require some big-time look-in-the-mirror conversations. Like, I've been opposed to – we've flirted with the idea of shopping Felix Bautista, right? But I've largely been opposed to it because you still have Felix Bautista next year, and you want to win a World Series next year. But are you? And that, to me, I get it. It's going to be really hard to know that definitively by the trade deadline, but that's the really compelling conversation at this point. The current group of guys and the way they're performing are not a core of players that are a year away from winning a World Series. So should you be looking to move Felix Bautista? Should you be looking to move Dean Kramer? Somebody would get really froggy and say, maybe you should look to move Adley Rutschman. Nah, you get pennies on the dollar.
Trade Adley when his value's the lowest.
No. And the truth is they don't really have the only players they have significant control over are that group of young players. There's no contracts of
2 years.
Yeah. They don't have those guys. Yeah, right. With an option. So I don't know. I don't know what a team would think they'd be acquiring. Also, I don't know who would take on Tyler O'Neill.
Someone who needs home runs, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's what he
hypothetically,
does?
that is I'm to understand. That's what he does. Again, all of this sounds like I'm piling on. I don't want it to sound like I'm piling on. I think this is a very practical conversation that has to be had within the organization about where they are. We all like Gunnar Henderson. We all think Gunnar Henderson's a special player, but we can't ignore. It's been weeks since Gunnar Henderson's hit a home run. Weeks. And not two. I believe it's been over 20 days since we've last seen Gunnar Henderson hit a home run. There's a problem here.
Did you like the Reddit that Reddit theory that other teams that Papa John's is paying other teams to walk or to pitch around
so
So they don't have to.
That's not.
So they don't have to get.
Yeah, it is
the
the frustrating part is I typically know when Gunnar Henderson had a home run because
Yeah.
Leah, who runs our office, always takes advantage of the pizza deal and always comes in with a pizza.
It was 21 days ago.
21 days.
June 5th in Seattle.
It's been 3 weeks since Gunnar Henderson's hit a home run. I can't ignore that. I can't just say, well, I think they can win a World Series next year. If these guys are performing like this, they're not a couple of pieces away.
He has 24 hits in the month of June.
And that's the thing.
Doubles,
I'm not right.
4 home runs. So he's only got 4 extra base hits.
Wait, say that again?
He's got 24 hits.
Right.
Only 4 of which are
extra base hits. And
hits.
I'm not trying to suggest that Gunnar Henderson isn't a good baseball player.
Mm.
He's clearly, like, in context, been one of their better baseball players. But this is in the context of, can you win a World Series? And in order for you to win a World Series, Gunnar Henderson needs to be a legitimate middle-of-the-order bat. But plenty of time to talk Orioles. I'm not going to just keep doing this. We'll have plenty of time. Jacob Calvin Meyer from the Baltimore Sun will join us a little bit later on.
Bob Nightengale as well.
USA Today, he wrote about the trade deadline as well. Get his thoughts on what it is the Orioles might do moving towards the deadline and how they go about making their decisions. And how bad is it? Because it seems really bad, man. It seems really bad. And I keep waiting for someone, because every time I talk to somebody about, like, should they hire a manager now, I always get this pushback. And I'm like, I get to understand what good is coming from them not having a manager. I don't get how that's helping. I don't get how it's good for this franchise.
You think David Rubenstein met with Skip Schumacher this week?
While he was in town? I mean, first of all, do I know that Skip Schumacher's traveling with the Rangers? I don't know that, right? Like, I mean, I guess that's something that what is it? Because he's got a weird title. Like, he's not
offensive. Is that what it was?
But he's not like a
strategy.
Coach. He's more of like a consultant. So is it possible that, like, he can just do that from Dallas or whatever? And
right. Okay.
Not. I don't know. I just don't know.
Baseball operations senior advisor.
Yeah.
Or sorry. He's senior advisor to president of baseball operations Chris Young.
I mean,
he's assistant to.
It doesn't sound like a job that
manager.
requires you to. Yeah, assistant to the regional manager. He's exactly right. It doesn't sound like a job that requires you to travel, but I don't know if he wants to, if it prevents him from traveling.
Right. Right, because, the general manager obviously doesn't have to travel unless you're Mike Elias and you just fired your manager and you want to travel to Milwaukee.
Right, go see the guy.
Yeah.
Go. It's
so you can meet with the media, obviously.
Today's show is brought to you by Game Day Men's Health in Owings Mills, Columbia, and Frederick. I'm headed out to Game Day Men's Health today and going to get an update on how things have been going, and they're going to do some tests and see how I've responded to the peptide treatment that I have been taking for the last few weeks. And I keep telling you, I've been feeling good. And I think a lot of men of certain ages go through this where you just don't feel like yourself, and you can't really define it or put into words exactly why it's the case. Do something about it. Whether you're just run down, whether you're feeling sluggish, perhaps you're low T. You can get a complimentary testosterone test. You can go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com in order to sign up. You can also call them, Game Day Men's Health, Owings Mills, 443-264-4454 is their phone number, but they have other locations. Game Day Men's Health in Columbia, 443-266-3505, or if you're headed out west, Game Day Men's Health in Frederick, 240-931-3717. Game Day Men's Health. Coming up this Saturday, 9th annual, very important event celebrating someone who is incredibly impactful for our city. You know our next guest. He is a Baltimore basketball legend, but his sister Sherron is also a legend in our city, and we're going to celebrate her again this Saturday. Joining us now, he is the great Muggsy Bogues, and he's back with us on GCR. Muggsy, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you as always. Thank you so much for taking the time for us this morning.
Thank you, Glenn, for having me, buddy. I really, truly appreciate it.
I always appreciate talking to you. And for those that don't know, right, for people that maybe weren't impacted by your sister and the things that she did for our city, can you explain the legacy that she's left here and why it's so important for your family and for the city to continue to have Sherron Bogues Day?
Oh, thank you for that. Because she was my hero. I mean, my sister Sherron was such a very inspiration, not only for me, but for a lot of kids in the city of Baltimore. When she joined Park and Rec, she took over the youth programs and made sure that those kids had a platform to excel. All aspects of sports. I mean, from football, basketball, all the recreation sports that they allowed them kids to play, she put on the lead and made sure that it was the best league for them all. And when she passed in 2015, I was so thankful that the mayor proclaimed her day on the 27th. Unfortunately, we're going to do it on the 28th this year because it falls on a Saturday out in Cherry. But, you know, this is, as you mentioned, this is the 9th year. My sister meant a lot to the inner city kids. She missed so many holidays taking on that task, and we understood her passion for that. And, you know, I'm just grateful to be in this position that we're able to continue to keep our legacy alive.
You know, Muggsy, I remember reading in your book, you talked about your own upbringing and some of the difficulties that you went through and even having been shot at one point. And I wonder if you can explain, for those that don't live in the city or came from more privileged backgrounds, the importance that Parks and Rec and people like your sister play in providing a path forward for young people like yourself and like obviously the generations that have followed you.
Oh, it was so very important. I mean, without a recreation center, I mean, a lot of those kids would have been lost, and I've been one of them included, because the center it's a safe haven for the kids that's in the community. It gives them an opportunity to really go and just be a kid. And the instructors that's there, and thankful that I had a man of the name of Mr. Leon Howard, who took myself, Reggie Williams, guys like us under his wing and gave us a vision, opened our eyes to that little round basketball. We had no clue what it could do for us. But just him taking his time and, out of his busy schedule, just to take two little kids under his wing, and we was like little sponges. It's just soaking up all that information. So recreations, man, really do play a very big part for the inner city kids, because there's a lot of things outside of that center that can really be negativity that they don't need to be involved in, and that center really gives them a place to go to be themselves.
The 9th annual Sherron Bogues tournament and celebration is this Saturday, 12 to 6 p.m. It's a free event with games, music, and food at the Middle Branch Fitness and Wellness Center, 201 Reedbird Avenue. And you can find out more by calling 410-545-1978. We'll try to get some more information up on our Twitter account, @GlennClarkRadio. And I know that the basketball tournament has always been a part of this event, right? Like, there's no chance, Muggsy, that we're still seeing you getting out on and dishing out dimes and making people's lives miserable, right?
Oh, no, they ain't got to worry about none of that. It's all about just come out and enjoy the kids. We're going to have football games started.
We remember when Maryland played Colorado State in the NCAA tournament, there was that line after the game. They asked him about where it came from, that he was the one to take the shot, and his answer was simple and profound. He said, "I'm from Baltimore, that's why." And I wonder what you thought about when you heard him say that and how that hit you, and it reflected the story of guys like Derik Queen, and obviously he's a very different size than you. He's not maybe the typical Baltimore basketball player that's a little undersized. But how did those words hit you and that feeling that Baltimore basketball players still have to this day?
Oh, it hit me with pride because, knowing Derik and having the opportunity to see him as a kid, because he grew up with my grandson, my daughter, Taisha, and my son-in-law, Woody, kind of, raised Derik along with his mama in the basketball, making basketball decisions for him. So seeing them at the draft last night, watching all, the joy, the journey, the path that he's taken. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I'm just so proud of him, his parents, his family, allowing him to stay on that path. Because, a lot of us, come from that area, get distracted. And for him to be able to stay focused all the way through, to see his dreams come to a fruition, I would just enjoy watching it.
Do you feel like he's still somehow being overlooked? Like, there are a lot of people around here that would have liked to have seen him go to the Wizards, one of your former teams, with the 6th pick in the draft. Do you feel like him falling to third, there's still people that are overlooking what it is that he brings to the table?
I don't think so. I think it happened for a reason. I was happy that he didn't go to Washington. I think he had the opportunity to really, be himself away from the city.
Yeah.
And I think he can be able to, really mature and develop into himself. But even when he went to Washington, I wouldn't have no real feelings with that because, again, I think they in the rebuilding stage, they're trying to now with Bub there, with the things that they're trying to do in Washington, you can see the regime changing. So I'm really pleased with the direction that, the ownership has gone in it, with the players. But I think Derik is going to find that in New Orleans.
You, of course, you were so kind to take some time for us for our print issue celebrating Carmelo Anthony's legacy that's now available. The print issue of PressBox, you can read it as well at PressBoxOnline.com. You see if you're with us on YouTube. Griffin's holding it up right now. This, what it means for the city, what it means for everybody that's cared about Baltimore basketball to finally have representation in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Muggsy, I think it was really powerful listening to what that meant to you, kind of speaking on behalf of everybody in this city.
Oh, it was deserving. So, he should have been that. I mean, Melo has really, had an amazing NBA career. Not only NBA career, had an amazing college career. The things he was able to do, he was able to represent himself, carry himself throughout his career without any blemishes on his record. I mean, it was remarkable to see. And, the scoring premises that he is. I mean, Melo could score with the best of them. For him to be able to, to sustain that type of a performance throughout his, what he played, 19 years?
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Yeah, because he only played 1 year of college, obviously, so he was able to have
that's ridiculous. So I was so thrilled and happy to see him going to the Hall. And like I said, it was deservingly so.
Muggsy, I wonder, I think we've talked about this before, but I've kind of asked aloud if there should be a Hall of Fame conversation about Muggsy Bogues. And I acknowledge that part of it is that I don't think people recognize the greatness of your career because they think so much simply about your size. But I do think that it's part of the story that you're unlike anything we've ever seen in the history of the game of basketball. You're literally one of one. Is that something that you think about at all? Does it frustrate you that there isn't more of a conversation about that? Or did you make peace with that at some point a long time ago?
It doesn't frustrate me. I let, those are the other folks out there need to continue those type of conversations. I'm pleased what I was able to accomplish, the path that I was able to take, the things that I was able to do. I leave it to the others, determine what that means or where that placed me. I do consider myself one of one, being the smallest ever do it.
Yeah.
But again, I never look at myself anything other than just a basketball player. So how they, determine, the results of that, it's on them. I'm just happy that I was able to have that opportunity to showcase and let folks know that the game of basketball is meant for, tall, small, whoever just have the, ability to play the basketball. Yeah. So that's just, the way I think.
What has that meant to you, though, in the years that have followed when we've seen other, players that, I think about Shanta, obviously, from years ago, but, like, what has it meant to you to sort of be that guiding light for guys that, like, hey, you can do this. You don't – we believe right now you have to be 6'8", right? Like, it's a league for guys that are 7 foot tall and play like they're point guards. But what has it meant to you that you've kind of been that guiding light for generations of basketball players that have followed?
Well, it's been great. I mean, knowing that you would inspire those that's out there who, feel like they can come around and relate to you. But, for me, it's just trying to give people encouragement to live their fulfillment dream. Live their life the way they see it, and not, be limited towards what others think of them. Because people always tell you who you could be, who you should be, but you already know who you want to be. So having that mindset, knowing that, you're capable, and being able to show that the game of basketball, as I say, small or tall, the game of basketball is for us all. So I'm just happy that folks realize that, a person my size can have that type of impact on the game that's, what we consider the highest in the world, which is the NBA.
Before I asked this question because I always feel like you're connected to everyone in this sport. Like, I feel like we could play, it's like a Kevin Bacon game. I think there's a 6 degrees of separation from Muggsy Bogues. Being in North Carolina, did you have any connection at all with Aaron Wiggins of the Thunder, who played at the University of Maryland, who was a Greensboro kid? Did you ever come across him at any point?
No, not Wiggins. I did not, and he is from Greensboro. We did not have an opportunity to come across Wiggins while he was here.
All right. Obviously someone that I think showed the world what he was capable of during the course of the NBA Finals. How much did it break your heart to see Look, to take nothing away from the Thunder, extraordinarily deserving champions, and they might be winning more, right? Because they are loaded. But how much did it break your heart to see Halliburton go down like that in Game 7 and not get that, kind of storybook ending, the mano-a-mano for Game 7 of the Finals?
Yeah, it was sad to see Halliburton go down, knowing that Indiana really needed his performance on the floor for Game 7. And, the game that he was having before he even went down, that was sad to witness. But how that crazy thing in the sky, they say things supposed to happen for a reason. But I didn't see what reason that should have happened. But I'm hoping that he recovered quickly. It was a great series. It really was.
Right.
Seeing OKC and Indianapolis, compete and carried all the way to 7 games. Both won on each other's home floor. But again, home court advantage really, showed his head in terms of one of the reasons why you won home court advantage.
Muggsy, how stupid was it that people were obsessing about the size of the markets going into the series? Did you not like basketball? What in the world are we talking about? You got the best teams, guys going at it for 7 games. Why was that ever a conversation?
I have no clue, but you know how it is. People like saying big old markets be part of something, but, Indiana and OKC, I think they just as, great markets within itself. Yeah. And I think anybody should love good basketball should have wanted to tune in. So I didn't understand that part.
Muggsy Bogues, this Saturday, 12 o'clock is when everything starts, goes to 6 o'clock. It's a free event. Sherron Bogues Day, a great celebration. The Middle Branch Fitness and Wellness Center, 201 Reedbird Avenue. And again, call 410-545-1978 if you have questions or want to know more about the event. Muggsy, I love that we continue to do this. Always appreciate you taking the time for us, man. Thanks so much, and we will talk again very soon, all right?
All right, buddy. Thank you so much for having me.
That's the great Muggsy Bogues, one of the sporting icons in our city. His name actually pops up elsewhere in the print issue of Press Box. As I did attempt an exercise, I've had a few people quarrel with for the first time ever. Normally when I do the 15, it's just I hate rankings. I hate lists because they're all so stupid and they're just one person's opinion. But when Melo retired, I remembered Stan and I having a conversation on a Friday about where he is in the greatest Baltimore athletes overall of all time. And we had the conversation, and we kind of just left it like he's probably top 5, and then just that was that. And so I decided to take a stab at it in the 15 in this month's print issue of Press Box. And it's an actual ranking. It's not what I normally do where I just,
Careful.
Well, look, I still feel the same way. I still think rankings are stupid. This was an exercise for me. A couple people have pointed out that there is no way I could make this list without there being any lacrosse players on it. And I said in the lead to it that one of the difficulties of that is that this was a list for ranking the totality of their careers.
I'm not on here.
Yeah, you didn't quite. To take nothing away from, what is it, North Carroll baseball? Is that?
Yes,
take nothing away from North Carroll baseball. Just didn't quite register. When you think about who's not on the list, I did include that. Somewhere in that.
How about Manchester Valley's first ever regional final appearance?
That'd be huge. And a dodgeball national champ. I don't want to take
Dodgeball
a
national
multi-sport, athlete. Much like, by the way, Brian Jordan, for example, is someone that didn't make the list. Like, that's, to me, it speaks to the depth of great athletes in the history of our city, that someone like Brian Jordan, I couldn't get onto the list. But it was very difficult. I've had a bunch of people, the lacrosse people have been after me. Again, part of the problem being
Who's the one you pick?
The only one that I did think about afterwards, and I said, yeah, you know what? Given what he's accomplished in his pro career, I probably did fail, is Brendan Mundorf, who you don't think of as...
I'm going to start Kyle Harrison.
So Kyle Harrison's an interesting one because, like, Kyle, it's fascinating that you bring up Kyle Harrison, right? Hang on a second. I want to pull up something real quick. Kyle Harrison, I think his legacy, if you include college, is very worthy of consideration. It's so difficult with the pro lacrosse leagues for me to define, like, how deserving someone is. Because, one, not all of the best players were even playing pro lacrosse. Like, it was tough. It was tough for me with lacrosse players specifically because we just don't have the
wide,
Like, if you want to say Kyle Harrison, when you combine the fact that he was a national champion in college with the fact that he did have a legendary pro career, probably should have spoken for the entirety of the sport, I would listen to that argument. Brendan Mundorf argument is he's like top 5 all-time in goals scored in outdoor pro lacrosse history. But that's a short history, right? Like, I just struggled with how to put lacrosse players on the list. Ultimately, the argument that the lacrosse people made is that, like, someone should have been on there. I think you're right. I think I might have failed in that way. Which is why, again, these lists are stupid.
Who would you kick out?
I don't want to kick out Muggsy.
I know, you can't kick out Muggsy.
I don't want to kick out Muggsy.
I feel like you have to jump up somewhere.
Right. Well, I think the argument would be that you kick out Calvin, who I kind of put on the list just because I wanted to recognize that there were there needed to be a football player on the list. And it was sort of between Antonio Freeman and Calvin Hill for who would make the list. But did I cheat in doing that? Should I have said, hey, look, truth be told, the football players from our city just haven't accomplished the great things that others Probably. That's the answer. Probably. It's really tough, man. This is a really, really difficult exercise because you realize, like, how many truly great athletes have come from our city. So, flame away, by all means, but I don't really care. We were just talking about Aaron Wiggins a second ago. Do you have any of that from the other day?
I think so, yes. Yeah. His promo?
Yeah, Aaron Wiggins. It was just wild, man. Like, who knew he had it in him? Aaron Wiggins was the first player to speak. They did the parade for the Oklahoma City Thunder on Tuesday. Somebody brought that up to me, like, you really did the parade 2 days after and then the draft 1 day later than that? And the NBA is in a really difficult spot where they're trying to pack a lot of things in before football starts. So they want to do...
Whoever they drafted I liked, though. Like, I thought the fit was...
The Thunder?
Yeah,
I don't remember who it was. They want to do...
Oh, Nick Clifford, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And where did Walter Clayton end up?
He ended up with the Wizards.
Yes.
Idiots.
I was like,
you know what? They're not going to get Queen, but I think Trey Johnson and Walter Clayton together, that's a good combo. They traded out of the pick right as it was the Jazz. So they got Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton. That is who the Wizards were literally supposed to
The
get.
word is that Ace Bailey's not happy about going to the Jazz. The word is apparently Ace Bailey wanted to be a Wizard. That wasn't like he had 3 destinations.
He wanted like an East Coast. Was that what it was?
Yeah,
it was
he
like
wanted it to be a team that didn't have a star.
Okay. so he wanted
he wanted to go to a place where he could be the guy. Yeah, that's the
marketing.
That's the argument, right? That's not a bad play. Colin Sexton, is he still there? I don't even know.
I think so. Yeah.
But he wanted the Nets, for example, because there's an immediate opportunity to step in on day one and be the guy.
Jordan Clarkson is still Walker Kessler.
Walker Kessler, sure. Yes, you would think that the Jazz, it's Utah, right? Like no one has ever been excited about, I get to go to Utah.
Unless you're really into skiing, maybe. Yeah.
I guess, right? Or you're Mormon or whatever. I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to really talk about Utah. It seems to be a beautiful place, but just traditionally, athletes haven't been very excited about going to Utah. Beside the point, obviously. The point is, Aaron Wiggins, they win the championship. And they go do the whole parade, and the parade ends
in the arena.
Yeah. Apparently with a stop in a park. There were like 2 different places where they did rallies as part of the parade. But the parade ends in the arena, and a few players speaking. The first one is Aaron Wiggins. And Aaron Wiggins, I don't think we can play the whole thing, but
it's like a minute long.
Okay, all right.
And
Aaron Wiggins
just from their Twitter account. So.
Cuts a promo, man. He goes ham.
I came in as a 55th pick in the 2021 draft. In my rookie season, we won 24 games. 24 games. But the best part about coming from that year is that the same people in this arena today celebrating this championship were the same people there when we were winning 24 games.
It was really good, man. It was really good.
It was the point where they tried to call us the black hole of the NBA. But 4 years later, when they mentioned the Thunder organization, when they mentioned Clay Bennett, when they mentioned Sam Presti, when they mentioned Mark Wagner, and every single one of you in this arena, they gotta mention you as NBA.
What is he doing? So yeah, that was pretty impressive from Aaron Wiggins, his promo performance at the parade. All right, winding down for hour number 1. Danny, who's listening this morning, messaged and said one theory that he has is that they're waiting until after the trade deadline to hire a manager. View the last 2 months as the start of the 26th season. It's a fresh start. That said, who knows? And again, that could be plausible. I guess my question would be, why does it need to be after the trade deadline? But I had said that before, that in my scenario, they wait until, mathematically they know. They wait until a point in which they know. Now, why does that need to be the case? I don't have that answer. You could argue, if you're making Danny's point, that, the players that aren't going to be a part of it are now gone, right? That you're trading those guys away. So the guys that are there then are the guys that matter to the next manager. So let's say you are hiring Skip Schumacher. He's not spending any time with Zach Eflin or Tomo Sagano or Cedric Mullins or Ryan O'Hearn, who it's quote-unquote wasted because those guys are going to be signing somewhere else. Okay. I mean, maybe. The sense that I've gotten is that they're going to wait until after the season to do it. But I think there could be an argument for that being a better way to go about doing this. 2 months to get a jump start on 2026. But every day that goes by, the core guys don't look like these guys is concerning to me. In the context of, can they be a team that wins the World Series in 2026? Jacob Calvin Meyer of the Baltimore Sun joins us next. We'll talk more about it. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at driveeasymd.com.
Calling all athletes and families, don't miss Football versus Football, a free sports and wellness festival Saturday, July 19th from 10 to 6 at Baltimore Peninsula. Meet retired Ravens, other former NFL stars, and pro soccer players. Join youth sports clinics, get free health screenings, and enjoy food, music, and family fun. Powered by United Healthcare, presented by Sports Legacy Group, and supported by University of Maryland Orthopedics and 1-800-GAMBLER.
Baltimore's Classic 5 golf courses make golf fun and affordable. All 5 local courses, Pine Ridge, Mount Pleasant, Forest Park, Carroll Park, and Clifton Park, are challenging and fun for players of all skill levels. Book your tee time today at classic5golf.com.
Celebrate 60 years of America's favorite muscle car at Live Casino and win a new Ford Mustang. Earn entries daily and enjoy revved-up specials across our restaurants and bars all June. Cruise in Saturday, June 28th, and be one of 25 players to win cool trips, hot prizes, or a new Ford Mustang. Hit the gas at Live Casino at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, we celebrate the first ever Baltimore basketball player to reach the Naismith Hall of Fame as we talk to those who knew Carmelo Anthony best about how his Baltimore upbringing shaped his legendary career. Also inside, Bo Smolka profiles Ravens second-round pick Mike Green and find our annual summer travel section with information on some of the best sporting events and activities in Maryland that your family can check out all summer long. Press Box is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores. Or you can read the entire issue online at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can also find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps.
Feeling sluggish, unfocused, or not like yourself? It could be low testosterone. At Game Day Men's Health, we now for the 2025 Maryland 5-Star at Fair Hill. It's back this October. If you've never been, you got to check it out. The Triple Crown of Equestrian, plus a lot of great stuff that surrounds the event, including the Corgi Cup and the Food and Wine Festival. It's just a tremendous celebration of our state in the fall, surrounded by one of the biggest equestrian competitions in the world. Maryland 5-Star with the number 5, maryland5star.us. If you don't know, the Norfolk Tides game is on Masson today. They did that where they're going to show some minor league games this season. So with all the conversation this week about Samuel Basayo, I was like, well, that's cool. It gives people the opportunity to watch Samuel Basayo today. And then Griffin and I were just looking at the lineup. Samuel Basayo is not in the lineup today, which I don't think is because he's on his way to Baltimore, but, you know, maybe Jacob Calvin Meyer knows something that we don't. Just kind of a little bit of a gut punch for like, maybe I'll spend my afternoon watching Samuel Basayo. Nope, not going to be doing that. As I said, joining us now here on GCR, he covers the Orioles for the Baltimore Sun. He is Jacob Calvin Meyer. He's with us now here on GCR. Jacob, it's Glenn. It's great to chat with you, man. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
I shouldn't assume that Samuel Basayo not being in the lineup today is a sign that he's headed to Baltimore this weekend, correct?
Yeah, that'd be a bad assumption.
Yeah, that's what I figured. That's what I thought. Jacob, as you pointed out, it's been a hell of a week for the Orioles. They've tried to get no hit a bunch of different times, including last night, where you can say, hey, Jacob DeGrom was great, but that's not the only time they've been through this, so I don't think that's standalone. Is it starting to become rudderless again? How do we explain what has happened over the course of the last 7 days after this team looked like it was starting to turn the corner?
Well, listen, Glenn, they're just fatigued, right?
I heard.
I'm just kidding.
I heard a rumor.
No, but in a serious sense, like that can be part of the explanation, right? Like you play 16 games in 16 days, and 4 of them are in Tampa where it was hot as it was there, and then you come home and you're playing during a heat wave. Like that's a real thing. That doesn't necessarily account for the fact why you almost get no hit 3 times in 5 games. And your point there is right. All of this isn't about last night. Jacob DeGrom was unbelievable.
Phenomenal.
Last night. It might be the best game I've seen pitched since I started covering this team in 2023. I mean, I actually thought he was going to throw a perfect game.
Yeah.
And so he was that good. The problem is that the night before they got no hit through 6 innings by a guy who was making his 3rd career MLB start. Right? That's the problem, and it's like they had been performing better recently against left-handed starters.
Yeah.
And then they go out and they do the same thing that they did at times last year against lefties, the same thing that they did for most of this year, and they're just completely empty. And like they're saying that the players and Manzolino are saying that you can't really connect the dots here because it's different games, it's different pitchers. There's a bunch of factors that go into it. Some guys are in the lineup, some guys aren't, and that's totally fine on a one-off situation. But this goes back to the same thing that was frustrating fans early in the season, which is that this isn't about last night.
No.
This isn't about the past week. This has been a year now where there are stretches where this team looks, frankly, lifeless.
Yep.
And it is not a surprise anymore when they're being no hit through 6 innings. And that is dating back to a year ago where this happened a lot in the second half last year. And so what are the answers to those questions? I don't know. What are these guys supposed to say when we ask them the same questions over and over again? I don't know. But the best way for them, frankly, to not be asked these same questions is to stop letting this happen.
Sure. Yeah, right? It does go a long way. And Jacob, it's not just to the point, like this week, I would say it's a lot about the offense, but defensively, it's still a lot of the same things that we had talked about at the beginning of the year, right? It's still missing cutoff man, or where is the cutoff man, or hitting the cutoff man and then the cutoff man making a throw to the plate and that tag somehow not getting down somehow. I don't really understand that. But like there's still a lot of those things that are happening that I think a lot of people wanted to put on, like, hey, maybe that they'll get fired up by the change in manager, but like that those issues still seem to be kind of common occurrences for this team.
Yeah, the thing I've been having so much trouble with this year, and really over the past 365 days, is how did the 2023 team,
right,
that was really fundamentally sharp, was a clutch baseball team, played really smart baseball, how did it turn into what this is now? And frankly, it is truly a mystery. I don't think anybody can answer it. It would not surprise me if that same question has been vexing the front office over the past year. There's a couple things that I kind of point to, and I don't want to overrate these players that I'm going to mention, and I don't want to attribute superhuman powers to them and their ability to make a clubhouse work or to make a team work. But let's just look at it. Okay, so 2023, you had Austin Hayes in left field. Okay, Austin Hayes, for all of his flaws, really fundamentally sound baseball player. Okay, Austin Hayes was either throwing guys out or hitting cutoff men. Okay, you didn't really see him too often doing nonsensical things in the outfield or on the base paths. Colton Cowser, who is a much better baseball player in my mind than Austin Hayes, at times, because he's a young player, will miss cutoff men. He will make mistakes on the bases. Okay, so that's one. You do the same thing. Jackson Holliday, clearly much better player than Adam Frazier.
No doubt.
On the flip side, Jackson Holliday is making one more mistake a week than Austin Frazier was making, right? And those things to like just the common baseball fan are much more noticeable than maybe the other things that let go unnoticed, right? So like it's obvious to like the common baseball fan of when you either make an error or you get picked off for first base or you miss a cutoff man, and then you go to another position, you go to catcher, right? I think Gary Sanchez is better than James McCann. Now, it's not just me saying that. Major League Baseball says that, right? Clearly, right? Gary Sanchez
in far more demand, yes, correct.
Right. However, right, if we had to say who's a more fundamentally sound catcher,
no doubt,
I think most people would say James McCann.
Yep.
And so I think it's two things, which is like, man, how did this happen? But then you look at those small changes in those positions when you are replacing fundamentally sound players with younger players or other players who aren't. And just one more thing on that point, which is that when you're losing more often and when your pitching staff is giving up more hits and more homers and more runs, it will put the offense in a position to be more aggressive on the base paths, put your defense in position. So that's a factor to this too, which is when your pitching staff is worse, it makes everything a little bit more harder, and it's sort of like a pressure cooker.
Hey, but other than that, things are going great. Jacob Calvin Meyer, of the Baltimore Sun, is with us here on GCR. Jacob, as we extrapolate from micro to macro, I feel like I don't know that it ever really mattered that they had put together a decent little stretch of baseball. I always thought that it was still going to lead to they're going to move the pending free agents at the deadline. I feel like at this point that's probably not really even like all that debatable. I think the question for me now becomes, if it gets worse, do they start to think about maybe guys that aren't even pending free agents that could get them a big haul, like, say, a Felix Bautista?
Yeah, I mean, I would still probably say no to that question.
Okay.
And you're right. I agree with you that even when they won 6 straight, or they were 18-12 or whatever that stretch was, like the people, I was never in the camp that the Orioles were back. And the same to the same token, I also am not necessarily ready to like stick a fork in them. Like I do still think that there's a path here. They need to get going here in the next couple of weeks because the deadline's only 5 weeks away. You really need to get it done in the next 4 weeks because you have a week before the deadline to maybe, I don't know what the date would be in Mike Elias's head of like, hey, if we don't get to this, whatever is in Sig's computer, like, hey, we got to get to this record by this date or whatever. But like, yeah, it's funny. A month ago, I wrote about the qualifying offer and how that was a factor here for a lot of them. Really, their big four, quote unquote, big four of O'Hearn and Sagano and Eflin and Mullins. Since I wrote that, it really proved to be quite the jinx because other than O'Hearn, who's going to be an all-star and would probably get them quite a solid haul at the deadline and might be worth the qualifying offer. Since then, Zach Eflin, who looked like a slam dunk for the qualifying offer and frankly probably still is, has been really bad.
Brutal.
Sagano, I don't think has made it through 5 innings since I wrote that story, and Cedric Mullins got hurt and has slumped since he got back there. And if you look, Cedric Mullins has a negative wins above replacement on Baseball Reference, which is frankly shocking. I really don't know what's going on there. I guess the defensive metrics this year, DRS doesn't like him while OAA does. Let's not get into the specifics, but those players, that's adding to this of like, okay, the team's not playing well, and if you're going to sell at the deadline, you go, okay, let's just sell everybody. What are you going to get for some of these guys at this point? And then the qualifying offer thing might not even be on the table because those guys might not be players that are worth the qualifying offer. So it's like, in my mind, is it worth trading Cedric Mullins, a guy who you might want to stay here next year, if possible, because you don't really have a replacement for him, an obvious replacement for him in center field? Like, does it make sense to trade that guy when what you're going to get in return is the number 27th ranked pitching prospect in the Brewers farm in the Phillies farm system who's in low A? Like,
no, it's a fair.
It's
a fair question, Jake. And I know that the one of the things that people have pushed back and said, hey, look, this is a weaker class of obvious trade deadline targets, right? And that can change in a minute. A team could make a decision to commit to being sellers in the coming weeks that we don't see, but that's the argument you hear, is that it's just a weaker overall class of definite trade targets, and that's why the belief is that even to your point, we're all saying the same thing in Cedric Mullins, there would still probably be a market for Cedric Mullins because there just isn't a ton that's available at the moment. That could change, but it's a warranted conversation. Like, I don't disagree with that whatsoever, that, if you're just getting, a bag of balls at some point, should you talk about, hey, maybe it's not the deal that you thought it was going to be for Cedric Mullins. Maybe it's something that's a little bit more friendly, and you try to work it out. I'm not even sure that I'm fully opposed to not exploring an extension with Ryan O'Hearn, right? Like, I know the argument is that he's going to be blocking somebody's path, particularly when Basayo gets here, and you need to have at-bats for both he and Rutschman, but you got to have good baseball players.
Right. So that's an excellent point, which is that when I look at this and everybody says like, hey, trading the player does not preclude you necessarily from signing that player in free agency, although it is quite unlikely. There are not many examples of it. Why at this point would any of these players, especially Ryan O'Hearn, why would he sign an extension right now, right? He's a couple months away.
Yep.
As long as he just doesn't crater, which he's not going to do. But he would have to really crater. He's a couple months away from getting probably a 3-year contract similar to maybe what Tyler O'Neill got, right, this past offseason. And this is a guy that was a cast-off, came to Kansas City, never thought he'd be here. This is his only chance to cash in. It doesn't really make sense for him to sign an extension unless that's a really friendly extension for him. But you look at it, and this is a really simplistic way to view it, but right, it's just a way. If it were me, right, you look at it and say, okay, if you keep all of these guys, and maybe let's say you trade O'Hearn because he can actually get you something significant, but if you keep the rest of these guys and you trade the relievers who you'll like Dominguez and Soto or whatever, but let's say you keep Eflin, you keep Sagano, you keep Mullins, and because is it worth keeping those guys and having a good second half to get some momentum into the offseason? Is that worth more to your organization than the 23-year-old pitching prospect in high A? Like, I don't know, man. Like, honestly, it might be. Like, unless they really like these players. Because, like, for example, like, you look at they made a random trade last deadline. They got Patrick Riley for Billy Cook. And that was a good trade, right? If you look at it, I think that was a smart trade. Patrick Riley now got Tommy John. He's going to be out the next 18 months. It's just like, I don't think this farm system is in as bad of a spot as people think. The problem with it is that you just don't have a lot of studs at the top anymore.
The high end,
They're not right, and they don't have anybody to trade to get one of those players. This farm system's issue is not the issue is not the fact that they don't have solid players in the heart of their farm system. They have too many of those players. The problem is they don't have a lot of studs at the top aside from Basayo, and they're not going to be able to get any of those guys.
Jacob, I want to wrap with something that I feel like we could end up doing 6 hours on, so I know it's going to be tough putting it in. This is the last question. I have had the opinion, I don't know, I probably run it by you, but maybe not. My opinion has been that I don't think it makes sense. I know you want to have the deepest pool of candidates to hire a manager from, but I think it's harmful to have any lame duck manager. And my opinion has been since they've fired Brandon Hyde that they should be trying to hire a manager and that there are good candidates available. I don't think that's what they're doing, but it's my opinion. And part of the reason why it's my opinion is because every day that goes by that, like, Gunnar Henderson isn't hitting home runs, and Adley Rutschman isn't Adley Rutschman. Obviously, right now he's not even playing. But I start to question, one of the thoughts that I've had is that this shouldn't be a rebuild. This should be a retool because you should be trying to be competitive and win a World Series next year. But every day that goes by, I start sensing I don't know that this core group of players is good enough to think that they can win a World Series next year, or that they're even a couple of pieces away from that. And I worry that when I say that, like that I'm being too negative or that I'm hitting a panic button that doesn't need to be hit. But I am really struggling with, I think the problem is in some ways the peripheral, but I think we got to discuss that the problem is also the core group of players at the moment that just to me don't look like a core that's close to being able to win a World Series.
Yeah, so there's 3 things there that I want to touch on. The first one is you're mentioning the possibility that you're being too negative or that you're hitting the panic button when you don't need to. Aside from some people that don't need to be named who maybe can be too negative at times, I don't think, frankly, for fans of this team, that you can be too negative at this point.
Yeah.
I think it is fully fair for this fan base that has been mistreated by this organization for decades to be very frustrated with the past year. And so I don't think that any of what you just said there is anywhere near being too negative. The second point about the manager is a totally valid point. I guess the only pushback I would give, and I think I may have said it to you the last time we talked, which is that if Mike Elias was convinced, or David Rubenstein, if they were convinced that their next manager is on the market right now, then they probably would have hired him. And so that's leading me to believe that the next manager of this team is more likely to be a Ryan Flaherty than it is to be a Joe Madden. Okay? So, and whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. I become more convinced I become more convinced by the day that this team needs a Titan for its next manager. That they need a personality. They need somebody who has cachet in this game and somebody that demands being listened to and has the ability to make his own decisions. I don't know if this front office is going to do that, but and that guy might make analytically incorrect decisions from time to time. But it might be better for this team in the long run to hire a guy like that. Your third point about the core guys is precisely the reason why I don't think that this fan base can be too negative or disappointed about where this team is right now, because that's the scariest part of all of this.
Right.
You look back, and the question is if you look at rebuilds over the past 10, 20 years, the one that failed the most was the White Sox a couple years ago, and they had the best farm system in baseball. This was supposed to be for the White Sox just a decade of dominance. And you know why it wasn't? It wasn't because of mismanagement from the owners, which happened, or the front office, which also happened, or the manager, which also happened.
Yeah.
It's because their core group of players was not as good as we thought they were.
Tim Anderson and Eloy Jimenez.
Exactly. Is that going to be this group?
Right.
My guess is it won't be that bad. But it is quite possible that it is possible at this point. We do have to question, is Adley Rutschman ever going to be as good as he was in 2022, 2023?
Sure.
We do have to question if last season was Gunnar Henderson's peak, partially because it was such a high peak, but also because it's just been a little bit weird for him the past year. Jordan Westberg is having trouble staying healthy. Colton Cowser has had trouble staying healthy. Jackson Holliday, while I know fans are extremely excited about him right now, and it has been an encouraging year for him, I believe he has a sub-300 on-base percentage since he was moved to the leadoff spot, right? He's also one of the worst defensive second basemen in Major League Baseball. I understand he's 21, but all of these things are relatively concerning. On the flip side, all of those guys are really good players, and if I had to bet, I would probably say that most of those guys will either get back to where they were or ascend to becoming star players if you talk about Cowser and Holliday and Westberg. And so, to your point, it is disappointing. It is the most concerning part about all of this.
Jacob Calvin Meyer, tremendous stuff, man. At J. Calvin Meyer, of course, is how you follow him. Baltimore Sun, BaltimoreSun.com. Jacob, is there anything specific we can plug for you, man?
Nope, just my social media. I appreciate you guys for having me on, and we'll see if they can avoid getting no hit tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see. I appreciate you, man. Let's talk again soon. Jacob
Thanks,
Calvin
guys.
Meyer, the Baltimore Sun, with us here on GCR. What a greeting. Man. I did. You went to the game last night, right? I know you got to call Bob Nightengale.
Yes.
At what point in the game did you go from? I've asked this at
the third inning. That's when I was like,
in the third inning. But I'm saying specifically that you started rooting.
When I started rooting for it.
Yeah.
The sixth.
The sixth.
Yeah. Okay. Because at that point I was like, I'm ready to go. So like, if the Orioles get a hit in this.
No, I mean the other. Like I feel like at some point when you're at a game like that, you genuinely acknowledge that your team's not going to win.
Mm-hmm.
If you're at a game that's 1-0, it doesn't happen because you still want your team to win. But when you're at a game that's 7-0,
it was 6-0, I think, in the sixth inning.
And it's only for the people that go to the game. If you're at home, you of course just desperately want to see your team get a hit and break up the no-hitter.
Yeah, the seventh they give up the seventh run in the top of the sixth.
Yeah.
So yeah, by that.
But
point,
when you're at the game, I feel like there's a moment where it flips. And all of a sudden, you're kind of genuinely rooting for the other team.
Yeah, I went with my uncle, and I think it was that bottom of the sixth, I think it must have been the bottom of the sixth, and he's entering the sixth, and we're like, DeGrom's at 50 pitches
Was
right
the
now.
sixth where he walked? When did he walk?
The seventh was the walk.
The seventh was the 2 walks, right?
God, and everyone erupted.
Yeah, because it broke up the perfect game, right?
They started spraying the bird bath.
A lot of people there were a lot of opinions on Twitter about the bird. Like, really?
It was 100 degrees.
My
God. I wanted to be bothered by it, but that was where the most fans
I saw an
were
argument.
sitting
Yeah, I saw an argument
together
from a couple people
they
that
wanted to get wet.
That was like, well, yeah, but you didn't have to put it on TV, right? Like, it was embarrassing to put it on TV. I'm like, dude, somewhere in what you're saying, we could probably find a point, but it ain't what you're saying. Like, we're doing too much there. What you're saying is the feeling that we have watching the game is not being expressed by the product that we're watching. And to some extent, I understand what you're saying. I do. That you want to watch something that reflects the way that you're feeling. And I think that's a bigger picture conversation that can be had about broadcasting and media and where we stand in 2025. and corporate media and the way that we project things. I think that's a huge conversation that can be had. But you're angry at the team. You're angry at the team. That's what you're mad about. The guy, you paid money to go sit in the splash zone, and there was nothing to be splashed about. And it was 1,000 degrees outside. So any reason, I can understand why it was that they had the guy spray everybody. I can understand that. Because it was the one night that everybody in the ballpark wished that they were sitting in. I've said before, I'll never sit in the splash zone. If I had been at the game last night, I wish I would have been in the splash zone. Gladly walk around with wet underpants for the rest of the evening, considering.
Well, I had wet underpants anyway.
Yes, because it's sweat. Exactly right. It's 1,000 degrees in Baltimore. Let's talk a little bit more about the Orioles and what might happen at the deadline. Joining us now, he, of course, covers Major League Baseball for USA Today. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program our friend, Mr. Bob Nightengale, who's with us here on GCR. Bob, it's Glenn. Appreciate you taking a couple of minutes for us. I know you're an Arizona guy. We're actually jealous of the weather in Arizona because it's been 1 billion degrees in Baltimore this week.
I know, as I tell people, it's actually mild here compared to everywhere else. It's still just about 100, but there's no humidity, so it feels like probably about 75 in Baltimore.
When I lived, the 2 years that I lived in Arizona, people would ask me, well, what about – because I would always talk about how, spring in Arizona is better than anything anywhere. There's just – March in Arizona is, the most perfect month that's ever existed. And people would say, yeah, but what about the summer? I'm like, we just treat it like the winter in Baltimore. We just don't really do anything outside. You just sort of say, the sun's trying to murder you.
Do it before noon, exactly.
That's exactly right, man. Bob, I assume that, there was a little bit of, and you wrote about it USA Today, the Orioles were showing signs of life, and, they did put together a nice stretch of baseball, but it's never shaken me that I think the priority will be for this team to try to move the pending free agents that aren't going to be a part of it to see whatever they can get, just because I've always sensed that was going to be the case. Is there any reason why you wouldn't expect that to be the case?
I still think they'll give it more time. I just think this, they're thinking, okay, we're not going to get a ton for these guys anyway. The problem the Orioles have is, and it's a good problem, is they have so many prospects anyway. It's not like, we need to rebuild the minor league system. Minor league system's absolutely loaded. So, yeah, you're going to get some parts, but it's not like they really need it. I mean, what they need is some stud pitchers.
Right.
And they're going to have to do that in the offseason. Unless for some reason they, the one guy that would make sense is, go ahead and trade some stud prospects to Miami.
To get
I'm sure Miami would love to get the Orioles involved. And you get them for 2.5 years.
By the way, I haven't been opposed to that, Bob. I've brought that up a few times this year. I'm starting to wonder if the Orioles aren't really a year away from being able to get back to contention, and if that might just not make sense. I am really struggling with not just the record, but how Adley Rutschman was playing before he got hurt, and that Gunnar Henderson suddenly can't hit a home run. There's just things that are bigger picture problems for me that I'm starting to wonder if it does make any sense at all to be acquiring pieces if you're the Orioles.
Well, you're going to have to acquire them sometime anyway. If you don't do it now, do it during the winter. Whether it's Keller or Pittsburgh or, there's enough guys, Cabrera, obviously in Miami. But, I'm sure the Orioles front office is kicking themselves man, look what Garrett Crochet is doing. We should have jumped all over that thing. The guy's been a Cy Young candidate for the Boston Red Sox. So what you think, Alcantara, it's at least you have them through the 2027 season.
True.
It's not like you're just getting to do, just for the rest of this year.
What is the cost of Alcantara at this point, right? I don't know exactly what to make. We all know what he's capable of being, but what does it cost you? Because there's not a whole lot of pitching available at the deadline.
No, and you look around, how much pitching is going to be there in the off season. So, if they get the sense they're going to move them now, you might as well jump on that freight, even if it's going to be, 2 of your top 10 picks. It may hurt a little bit, but at least you got this guy. It's a little bit like what the Padres did a couple of years ago with Juan Soto, and they gave up the farm for him. And yet, about a year later, they say, you know what? He's really not helping us that much. We're going to spin him off to the Yankees. So certainly, the Orioles could do that too. Like you trade for the guy. It's like, okay, you got a chance to trade him at next year's deadline and the year after if you're not completely sold on him.
Is that a bet worth making on someone who's pitching to a 6.69 ERA and a 1.45 WHIP at this point this season?
Well, you certainly have to have get some doctors involved, make sure everything's fine. He has pitched much better lately. I think it's like a 2.72 ERA on the 4 starts in June.
Okay.
So, we all know he's capable of it. He's not making much money either. That makes him attractive. There'll be guys out there this winter, whether it's a Zach Gallen, a Merrill Kelly, a Dylan Cease, but none of them had the resumes that Alcantara has.
He is Bob Nightengale, USA Today. He's with us here on GCR. Bob, one of the names you referenced in the story you wrote about the deadline was a name that we've bandied about a bit here in Baltimore, which is Felix Bautista. And it's tough because to the point, like, if you do think you can contend again in 2026, you want to have Felix Bautista be a part of that. But as you referenced, the Orioles have players in the system. What they're missing is studs. They no longer have the surefire top prospects. The one guy that you would assume could fetch you a significant haul would be Felix Bautista. Should they be exploring that possibility, knowing that he's still under contract or he's still part of what you have going on through 2026?
Yeah, at least with him is that, you'd say, okay, he's available. What do you got to offer? So many contenders are, really dying for, late inning relief help. So, the beauty that he has the, contract, longer than, might even be 27.
Yeah, he's still got, correct. He's still got 2 more years of arbitration, yeah.
Okay, yeah. At least you don't have to trade him. Like, okay, let's put him out there and see if we get what we want. If we can't get what we want, then we're going to keep him. But you could always, say, what, we'll use prospects to, go get a starting pitcher we want, and knowing we'll get some prospects back if we do trade Bautista.
Yeah, you're almost trying to go both ways, which is sort of the Tampa Bay Rays way of doing business from a few years back, which I don't know. I like, it is a really weird spot to be in if you're the Orioles, right? Because you weren't supposed to be this bad, but you are. And I think you do have to make decisions based around that. I think that we still don't know how committed they are. Do we know that the Orioles are willing to spend the money in order to try to solve this problem and be dramatically better next year?
We don't, but, when you look at past history, every new owner always spends money. That hasn't happened yet in Baltimore. And I think, no new owner wants to, get chastised and stuff from the fan base and, everything else. So I think they're going to have no choice to spend money. If they don't, all of a sudden, all that positive feelings, everything else, going to Rubenstein, and all of a sudden it goes the other way. Like, why'd you bother buying the team if you're not going to invest into it?
We mentioned the struggles of Alcantara. Obviously, the Orioles with Zach Eflin, he's pitching to a 5.46 ERA and a 1.38 WHIP this season. Is there so little pitching available, or that we know is going to be available at the deadline, that there could still be significant demand for Zach Eflin despite his struggles this season?
No, absolutely. Everybody's looking for starting pitching, except for maybe the Seattle Mariners. And he's a big game pitcher. People know what he can do. He was pitching great until he got hurt. So no, he would get a lot of interest. He really would.
Is there any argument for? We were just talking about this with Jacob Calvin Meyer of the Sun. Is there any argument for, say, like a Cedric Mullins, if the offers that are out there are so little, you just choose to hold on in an attempt that, like, maybe playing some better baseball in general in the second half of the season, even if it doesn't get you into the playoffs, could be what gets the ship righted and things turned around moving towards 2026?
Yeah, I'm sure part of the equation will be if he's a free, when he becomes a free agent, do you give him a qualifying offer at $20 million to make sure you get a draft pick for him? I don't think they do that, but at least it's an option. That's probably going to be the big factor. If they have any chance to win, you can, always hold on to him. So I'm not sure they get a ton for him, by any means, but there's hardly any center fielders available. and he's certainly one of the top probably 2 or 3 center fielders are going to be in the market.
I feel like there's almost like a conversation to be had. Like I think Eflin would still be a qualifying offer guy, but to your point, I think they're going to deal him, so I don't think that's worth the conversation. Is Ryan O'Hearn a qualifying offer guy? I know he's having an exceptional season, but to put a $20 million qualifying offer, I still think that you try to trade him when he's at his highest value, right?
Yeah, you would think so, unless they get back in this race and think they have a chance. Yeah. I think Eflin's definitely a qualifying offer guy. I'd be shocked. So he's that type of guy. Obviously, hey, Charlie Moore's pitching better now.
Right.
Really is.
Right.
He's not going to get a qualifying offer.
No.
So he would be a guy that teams will say, you know what, let's take a chance on him.
Yeah, they definitely want to kick the tires on that. I think there's no doubt. The last time we chatted Bob Nightengale was because I was very intrigued by something that you reported that Ryan Flaherty would be the top candidate to be the Orioles' next manager. In the weeks since then, have you heard anything else about that, or do you still think that would be the guy if they get to that point?
Yeah, we'll see how this guy does. And, if they make a run here and they like what they see, go ahead and keep him. But if they do look outside, I think Flaherty would be a strong candidate. He's been there and everything else. Everybody knows there's a manager waiting for someplace. So he'd be a great fit for number of teams.
All right. Bob Nightengale, of course, people can follow you at bnightingale on Twitter. And always check out your stuff, USA Today, usatoday.com. Bob, is there anything else we can plug for you this morning, sir?
No, thanks so much, and try to cool off there.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Bob. Bob Nightengale with us here on GCR. There's a couple things in there that I'm like I'm struggling with. I'm struggling with what's the line between what you would want to get for Zach Eflin versus the value of a qualifying offer and him signing elsewhere. I guess the other question is is there a world where Zach Eflin says, hey, I didn't have the season that I wanted to have. I'll just take your 1-year, $20 million qualifying offer, and I don't know what that does for you. You don't get that draft pick. That was the point of why you're making the qualifying offer, and then on top of that, all these things when we talk about it, they sound like so depressing. You don't even want to finish the thought. Like, you're talking about a scenario where you get nothing. You're stuck with Zach Eflin at $20 million, and you're not even sure that you want to have Zach Eflin at $20 million. Now, there's something to be said for maybe it's not the end of the world. It gives Zach Eflin a chance to come back next year and prove
kind of improve a year.
Yeah, right. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a depressing conversation. It just really is a depressing way to look at it. I still think if the pitching market is the way that Bob Nightingale's describing it, then my gut tells me you can get something back for Zach Eflin that's better than the draft pick compensation for him at $20 million. Or the bizarro world where he just takes the qualifying offer and plays at $20 million next year. I know we talk about, hey, that's just the price of pitching, but that's still a lot for 1 year of Zach Eflin if you don't know that Zach Eflin's going to be the second half of 2024 Zach Eflin. My gut tells me you're still better off trading him, but it remains to be seen. We don't know right now if Zach Gallen is definitely on the trade market or not. We don't know exactly what the Diamondbacks are doing. It very well could be that Zach Eflin is one of the top couple of pitching prospects. It's possible. God, I hate this. I hate this.
What are you trying to figure out? If you want to give it to whether they should trade Eflin or not?
Yeah, I'm in this. What is the best?
I think you have.
Yeah, right?
You have to.
Okay, but at what point is his return not worth it? At what point is his return...
When you're only getting...
Yeah, as Jacob Calvin Meyer explains, is like if what you find,
who's got a near major league ready pitcher that's trading for a starting pitcher. It's gonna have to be like the Trey Mancini deal. You're trading for a guy that's just got Tommy John.
Yeah, okay. You're just taking a chance on somebody and hoping for the best.
Along with a package of, something else.
God, this is rough, man. This is a rough conversation. And again, I keep coming back to how close are you? That's the part that I can't shake. How close are you? Because Bob Nightengale is still very interested in the Orioles. And I mentioned that a month ago, like that I could see going both ways at the deadline, both acquiring players that help you. But I'm starting to be scared off of that path. And the problem is if I'm starting to be scared off of that path, these guys aren't getting further away from free agency. These guys are getting closer to free agency. So if I'm scared off the path of acquiring, and I know part of it is you're not sure exactly where Sandy Alcantara is. To his point, he's been a little bit better of late, but
his ERA still near 7.
Phew. And you got to pay a heavy price because, again, there's not a lot of pitching available. So you're competing against teams that want to win this year for the few starting pitchers that are available. Can you hope that it depresses Sandy Alcantara's price slightly because those teams aren't sure of exactly what Sandy Alcantara is, so they're more inclined to go after other pitchers?
Charlie Morton's got a better ERA right now.
That's wild. That's wild. But I think I'm opposed to trade. Am I? I don't know if I am.
You're trying to. You're
like you have
to
to.
Eflin?
No, Alcantara is now what I'm talking. Like, am I now opposed to?
I don't know. I don't want to.
But his point is right. You have to find pitching before next year.
Yeah.
Whatever happens with this core, whether we're feeling great about Adley Rutschman at the end of the year or not,
will
you have to have pitching next year.
Do you think he'll be cheaper in the winter or?
I have no idea. I mean, you could say.
I mean, the Red Sox had to give up.
It's a little bit less control that you're getting at that point than, but that this year isn't the part of the control that's valued. So yeah, if he doesn't.
Well, I mean, all right. So then, if he's shut down for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
Then his
dog. I don't know.
Then he's very expensive.
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm in a weird place.
Well, I mean, in the trades that we've seen that people are proposing, it's like Basayo for Alcantara. I don't think they're doing that.
Well, I don't think that you can, but that to me is the reality of what the deadline looks like, that there's so little pitching available that that's the type of trade that it would take to get Alcantara. So, no, I don't think there's any world where you can do that. But, again, I keep saying you have to pay a tax in order to get pitching. Like, everything that I'm saying is juxtaposed against another statement. I don't think right now that I believe this core is good enough to win a World Series next year, so I don't think I would be all that aggressive to try to go about doing that. But at the same time, you can't just mail it in. You can't just give up another year the way that you gave up this year with this core. So you kind of have to be aggressive. But are you going to be recklessly aggressive? Or to the point, are you going to pay the price of something very significant in order to try to get Sandy Alcantara? And that's not like every time I say one thing, there's something else that I'm going to say that's going to rule that out. And this is what happens when you're in a uniquely bad situation. That I don't think is solved by Ryan Flaherty. Although I'd love to be wrong because I like Ryan Flaherty a lot. I would love for him to prove to be exactly what this team needs and come in the offseason and whip this group into shape and get the best version. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the answer. But get the best version of Jackson Holiday and Jordan Westburg and Gunnar. Like that from day one, he's going to be the culture changer. I hope, if that's who they hire, that that's the case. But do I believe it? Hard pressed. I don't know. I guess we'll do Fighting Words when we come back in. I don't know that it's going to make me feel better. Never.
Fighting Words always.
I need something that actually like I need to do it. I need to do a tennis segment because Wimbledon is coming back on Monday, so like there will be joy in my life again.
I got an idea for the name, Courts of Thunder.
It's a hell of a. I think unfortunately it's taken. It's a very popular podcast in the Dominican Republic. Suck it, David Ortiz.
Well, maybe can we find the host of that?
Well, definitely. If you think we're not going to be doing that in the next couple of weeks, you're wrong. Although I'm gone for the second week of Wimbledon. That is the nice part about being. Oh my God!
Just be watching Wimbledon.
It becomes a huge problem actually because we'll be at the beach and I will still have my phone out watching Wimbledon.
Oh, on the
and my wife will be like, "Why aren't you out in the water with the boys?" And I'll be like, "Because
Tommy Paul.
Yeah, exactly right. That's why not.
Sam Queer's talking about tennis.
Shut up. And the thing where the boys start getting into it, where I'm watching a match in the morning before we go to the beach, and now they're like, I want to watch the match with Dad. And then their mom is screaming. That's a weird. That's a weird. Their mom is screaming at them, and now she's screaming at me too. She's like, "You have to turn it off, or the boys aren't going to want to go to the beach." I'm like, well,
you should have thought about this before you had kids.
Is
You're
it
not going to watch.
Is it the end of the world if we don't? Is that the end of the world if we just sit here in the condo and watch some tennis? Doesn't sound so bad to me. Today's show brought to you by, this one will be brought to you by the Stan the Fan Variety Hour. If you missed Stan, Ross, and Shane Turner, manager of the Hagerstown Flying Boxcars, earlier in the week, you can find it at facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Click on the videos tab. Go to youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or YouTube or PressBoxOnline.com/video. That is. As always, Stan's show is brought to you by the Costas Inn and the brand new Costas Inn, now open in Timonium. Glenn Clark Radio. This August, the PGA Tour's best are coming to Maryland. The 2025 BMW Championship tees off August 12th through 17th at Caves Valley Golf Club in Owings Mills. See the top 50 players battle it out in the penultimate event of the FedEx Cup playoffs. Don't miss your chance to witness world-class golf, fan experiences, and unforgettable moments. Tickets are on sale now at BMWChampionship.com. The BMW Championship, where legends take the lead.
Celebrate 60 years of America's favorite muscle car at Live Casino and win a new Ford Mustang. Earn entries daily and enjoy revved-up specials across our restaurants and bars all June. Cruise in Saturday, June 28th, and be one of 25 players to win cool trips, hot prizes, or a new Ford Mustang. Hit the gas at Live Casino at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from driveeasymd.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at driveeasymd.com.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Want to improve your golf game or learn to play for the first time? The Baltimore Golf Academy has fun, instructional programs for the beginner golfer to everyday players. The Baltimore Golf Academy can take your game to the next level. Enroll today at baltimoregolfacademy.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Thursday edition of the program, which has turned into a really
pleasant Thursday.
Yeah, like it started where I was just frustrated about a baseball game, and now it's like led to we almost call it an existential crisis Thursday. I'm genuinely having a crisis where I don't know that there's even a direction for the baseball team at the moment. It's starting to make me wonder. Boy, like Jacob Calvin Meyer bringing up the comparison to the White Sox was like the most depressing thing that I've thought about the entire time, where I'm like, yeah, maybe there's a chance that this thing just doesn't work. Like, he's 100% correct about the way that we all treated the White Sox at the moment. Like, the White Sox were the sexy, they were the hot chick. They were the one that we were putting on the covers of magazines, that we were very hot and bothered about. And we were enamored with the talent they had put together. Of course, Jose Abreu was also part of that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of everybody that was a part of that core.
Like 2014.
It was
era?
Tim Anderson. No, more
like
more
2016.
No, more recent than that. Like when
they made the playoffs? Like that 2020 playoff?
Well, the 2020 is a difficult season to look at. But the
that
core of like Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu,
sure.
Eloy Jimenez, that group, and I'm just trying to think of who all was part of that group, which is 5 years ago, something like that. 20.
I'll pull up the exact.
When was Tony La Russa the manager of the White Sox?
Okay, yeah. Well, what? Well, Jose Abreu won MVP in 2020. So 21, I guess. They lost in the ALDS. He had Dylan Cease. He had Liam Hendricks.
Yeah, but who were the give me the core of that group?
Roster. There's roster. Cease was on that team. Crochet was on that team. Lucas Giolito was on that team.
You're saying the pitchers. I'm asking for the.
Craig Kimbrell was on that
I'm not
team.
looking for the pitchers.
I'm just looking left to right. Carlos Rodon. Jake Berger, Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu, Nick Madrigal. Yoan Moncada was supposed to be something.
Yoan Moncada was definitely supposed to be something. But
Mercedes.
Yoan Moncada had come over, right?
Yes, Monty Grandal wasn't awful yet. Adam Engel, Adam Eaton, Lurie Garcia.
Maybe I'm thinking
Billy Hamilton, Jake Lamb,
because Moncada had been with the Red Sox.
Gavin Sheets.
I guess Moncada was still considered because he was a part of a trade, right?
This was La Russa's first year, 21.
So what did the 2019 White Sox look like? We believed that the White Sox were the team that was about to turn, and that was there was so frustration that they were firing.
They were 72 and 89. Yeah, because they had Rick Renteria.
Rick Renteria.
Yeah, Renteria. Yeah. And he coached the 2020 season, and then they fired him afterwards.
He didn't coach it, but I know what you mean. You're doing the Tony Mansolino bit, or the what was Elias that was saying that you make a head coach.
He's a great head coach.
Yeah,
they went 35 and 25 in that.
But the core
season.
was definitely Abreu, Tim Anderson, Eloy Jimenez was absolutely part of that. I just feel like there was another outfielder that was part of that core. Maybe
McCann was on the 19 team.
Maybe it was Adam Eaton that I'm thinking of that was part of that. Like Adam Eaton definitely was.
Yeah, this team was not good. The 2019 was not good.
No, but it was it's not about the actual results. It's about
Wellington Castillo.
There was a core group of players. Nah, Adam Eaton was on the tail end at that point. God.
So you want to look at like 22 when they started falling off?
No. I'm not looking
for that. They won 93 games in 2021. That's the year, and then they won 500 in 2022.
Yeah, but I'm talking about when we thought they were there was a moment for the White Sox where we were focusing on them as the next team. They were the team that was going to have done this rebuild thing and end up being the team for the years that followed. And ironically, it might be that I
think it was 2020 going into 21.
But I feel like it was more than just Anderson and Abreu.
They traded.
I feel like there was somebody else.
They traded for Lance Lynn.
Luis Robert is the guy that I'm thinking of.
Luis
Christ, thank you.
Sorry.
I don't know why I'm thanking you. You didn't help in any way. I was trying to think of who the other player was. Yes, he's been awful. But at the time, you were looking at a group of players, a core group of players. It was Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu, Eloy Jimenez, Luis Robert. And you were saying to yourself, he was not part of that, but we like Gavin Sheets. You were saying to yourself, look at that core group of talent they have, to the point with the pitching that you had already brought up.
Don't forget about your
Yeah, I don't think he was really a part of this conversation.
He was a legend.
Yeah, sure. But it was both, right? Like, I don't want to be dismissive. The pitching was part of it, more so than the Orioles have ever had in this process. You were looking at this entire group and saying, like, my God, they're the thing. It's why there was such frustration about the idea of them turning it over to Tony La Russa, because you just thought, like, what? Like, why is that the guy? You felt like you were handing him the keys to a Mercedes, but he was too old to drive. And yet, it did not take long for us to look at that same core group of players that we thought were game changers and suddenly say, well, Tim Anderson's no good, and Moncada never became a thing, and Luis Robert never became a thing, and Eloy Jimenez never became a thing, and, Jose Abreu was probably the one that held up the most of that group, and that's not saying a lot.
Because he was on the tail end there.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I agree with Jacob Calvin Meyer. It's unfair to think that, like, this group is about to become that. But
the thing is, they had pitching, this White Sox team.
I understand. But it's not really.
That's why it's worse, in my opinion.
That's not really about. It's not about the performance of the team. It's about how quickly a group of position players that we were hot and bothered about as being a core that you could win with suddenly went from being that to being a group of guys that never were. And it didn't happen. It didn't take 6 years.
Got it. So you're saying the Gunnar Henderson being the next Louise Roberts?
I'm not. Okay. I'm not. That's the wrong way of saying it.
Okay.
I'm saying the reminder is that it's not a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why just saying, well, you've got these guys under control for a few more years, when you know it speaks to the frustration of this offseason, which is you've had the moment has been here. You arrived at the moment 2 years ago with a complicated, really 3 years ago, with a complicated ownership situation. And we gave pass to the inability to capitalize on it because of the complicated ownership situation. And then they got Corbin Burns, and we kind of like made it so that one move kind of ruled them all, right? Like, well, they did make the one move.
It was a good move.
And yes, there's still control in these guys. But I don't feel about them the way that I felt about them 2 years ago. They can change that in a hurry. Gunnar Henderson could start hitting home runs tomorrow. Adley Rutschman could come back from this stint and be Adley Rutschman again. Jordan Westburg can stay healthy. He's the guy that feels like the most short. Like, he has the lowest ceiling of that group, but
the highest floor.
To me, yes. Well, maybe not the highest floor. Gunnar Henderson's got a pretty high floor. Yeah. But, like, he's got a pretty safe floor to me. Colton Cowser, I got no idea. I mean, it's so wild what Colton Cowser can be.
Hits 500-foot home runs and then also strikes out 10 times.
Yes. Like, I have no idea what Colton Cowser is. Like, everybody's mad.
Moo.
Right, correct. Moo. We all enjoy Moo. We love Moo. Sounds like James Austin Johnson, Donald Trump. We love Moo, right? But, like, everybody on Twitter was mad that Jacob Calvin Meyer said they don't really have a center fielder. They're like, well, they got Colton Cowser. Oh, okay. Again, do I think
Enrique Bradfield is the
yes, he's the ultimate answer, but is he really ready next year? Given the way that they won't promote, Samuel Basayo's got to bang the door. He's got to take the door off its hinges and run it across the football field and throw it over the goalposts and then smash it with a mallet afterwards. Then he'll be ready. Well, then when do you think Enrique Bradfield's going to be ready? 2028? But yeah, like you could say, is Colton Cowser capable of playing center field, like from a legal standpoint? Yes, I think legally speaking, he has the range that if you need a center fielder, Colton Cowser can be your center fielder. But
he can't play right field. Maybe Heston Kjerstad can play center field. Try it.
But you understand where I'm at. Like, I'm having this conversation where I'm like, the struggle was that you didn't capitalize on the moment. Now I'm not really sure if you have a moment. I'm not sure this team has the moment right now. This feels more like you might not be a couple. You might just need to go spend wildly to bring in players and hope that these guys can hold on to these spots. And I don't want to be over dramatic about it. I don't just want to flap my gums for the sake of flapping my gums. But we can't pretend like things aren't happening either. I can't say, well, you've got an MVP guy in the middle of your order in Gunnar Henderson. You don't. You have Gunnar Henderson, but which one is Gunnar Henderson? Is he the guy that was an MVP caliber player a year ago, or is he the guy that's been a good baseball player? And just a good baseball player. I'm excited about Jackson Holliday too. He's been obviously better than he was a year ago, but he's not Bobby Witt. You drafted him 1-1 to be a superstar. And yes, he's 21, and I think he could very well still be in 2 years. We might be. Remember how silly it was that we were having this conversation? Of course. But I'm talking about the moment as it stands right now. If you take stock of what you have, what do you have? You tell me.
With the lineup, what do they have?
Yes.
It seems like that we need that we see is going to be part of the success the next 3 years. Like that kind of.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Like who's part of this thing?
I'm saying, what do you have right now?
Holiday.
And what is that?
Hopefully a leadoff hitter.
That's
maybe.
what I'm asking. What I'm
Fingers
asking
crossed.
is, what is this group of players?
Westberg.
What you're just naming names.
I'm trying to figure out
saying,
what you're
what
asking,
is this group of guys?
Yeah,
Take stock in it. What is this group? Because a year ago, we thought it was superstars. We thought it was the defining group, core talent, young players.
Okay, I see.
What are they today?
We don't know.
That's the conversation. That's where I am. I hope they're still going to be that group of guys. I think they're capable of still being that group of guys. But today, are they? Today, no. Which of that group of guys, which of those guys today is a baseball superstar?
Gunnar
is the closest.
But he hasn't hit a home run in 3 weeks. Yeah.
That's the reality. And we're not talking about prospects. These are Major League Baseball players, certified, guys who have been here. Jackson Holliday is the newest of the group. This is what makes it troubling. This is why I'm struggling. I'm struggling because the decisions that you've got to make, you have to make based on taking stock of what you have. And when you take stock of what you have, I don't know. I don't know is the correct answer. I don't know. And that's the part. I'm bummed that they didn't get a hit for 7 innings last night. I'm flummoxed about whether or not they really have a core group of superstars.
But you're not saying blow it up.
No, it's way dramatically too early to do that. Dramatically. You're, of course, writing it out. But you have to make decisions. And when I say part of the reason why a month ago I was interested in trading for Sandy Alcantara is because I thought you had a group of superstars. And so, yeah, it's been a down year, but you're going to be right back there next year trying to win a World Series. But today, I don't know that you are. I don't know if you have the foundation that you're a Sandy Alcantara away from that. If you have the best version of Gunnar Henderson and the best version of Adley Rutschman and I don't even know what the best version of Colton Cowser is because we've really only seen the best
450-foot moonshots.
I mean, but like we've only seen it. We've never seen it for a sustained period of time. I don't know what the best version of Colton Cowser is. But if you have the best version of those guys and a Jackson Holliday that keeps taking another step forward towards being the best version of Jackson Holliday, well then, yeah, you could start to think that you might be a Sandy Alcantara and a couple others away. But are they? That's the part. All right, we can do your thing now.
There's nothing else, are you sure?
I mean, I'm sure there's other things, but we can do your thing.
It's Fighting Words with Griffin Bass.
Anything, or just jump right into it?
No, we can say that Fighting Words is brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel.
Oh, sweet.
Because there is a pay-per-view that Griffin's going to tell us about and take way too much time on a subject.
I believe it's my segment, I thought.
It is your segment, but we still have to do it in a reasonable amount of time.
Oh,
there is a
we
pay-per-view
talk
on
about the Orioles for 2 hours?
Yes, that's what we do here.
Who wants to hear about that?
I understand. There is a pay-per-view on Saturday night. The best place to watch is Inside Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel. Instead of paying $1 billion for the pay-per-view, why don't you pay nothing? Gratis. Cero. And go hang out Inside Sports and Social. Instead, because on top of ordering the pay-per-view, you're also going to order pizza and wings. Instead, you could have a much better menu available to you at Sports and Social. And instead, you could take that money and try to go make more money in the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. It's what you call a win-win-win. Well, I guess depending if you win or not. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Don't spend the money on the pay-per-view. Spend the money at Sports and Social, live casino and hotel. Now, what is this pay-per-view?
Was that what we want to dive in, or we want to dive into the Jon Jones of everything?
Because I set it up that way, set it up that way.
All right,
and then
we will dive into this weekend, UFC 317. It's a strong card. We're going to have a new lightweight champion. It's either going to be Ilia Topuria, moving up from 145, who is undefeated, or Charles Oliveira, who has been champion before, has lost to Islam Makhachev. So he's getting another shot here. Topuria is heavily favored, minus 500, which when I initially saw it, I was like, that's crazy. And then you kind of dive into it, and it's like, it's probably still too high, but it's like, I guess you can kind of see it. Topuria is definitely, I was gonna say probably better. He's definitely better than Charles Oliveira, but he's moving up a weight class. So you're moving up in weight. You're gonna see a bigger guy here. And Oliveira's, obviously so dangerous. He can do anything. He can piece you up from distance. He has knockout power. He's obviously one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in the sport, and can submit you in so many different ways. But it just seems so crazy that Charles Oliveira is plus 350, really against anyone. But Topuria is undefeated.
So bet him.
He's 16. That's what I'm trying. That's what I'm going to talk myself out of it. Topuria is undefeated. He's 16-0. He's coming off knockout wins.
Sort of like those dopes that said that the final shouldn't be minus 750.
Yeah.
You know what you were? You were wrong.
Yeah. No,
all you idiots that said that it shouldn't be minus 750. Thunder had it. So.
He's coming off back-to-back knockout wins over Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. So, when I'm talking about, he's never seen guys this big. Well, Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski are both guys that have fought for belts at 155. So, maybe it's just the natural progression for him, and I'll end up looking silly for questioning the line. I think the most likely outcome in terms of odds was that Topuria gets a knockout. Which, again, is also crazy. But then you think about his most recent fight, he was the first person to ever knock out Max Holloway. He was the first person to ever finish Max Holloway. So, Ilia Topuria may just be, one of the best fighters we've ever seen, and he's a minus 500 favorite against Charles Oliveira.
It seems like if that's the case, then maybe there should be a little bit more of a brand appeal for him.
You would think so. You would think so. But they're not good at really selling anybody unless they're Irish and screaming weird things, or Jon Jones. There's another title fight as well. Alexander Pantoja will defend his flyweight belts against Kai Kara France out of New Zealand. And Pantoja we'll see what happens. Obviously, he's a moderate favorite.
There's not a women's fight this weekend.
No, there is not a women's fight this weekend. I mean, there's gonna be women's on the other card, but yeah, no title fight for the women's side of things. He's like minus 250, I think Pantoja is, and if he can get by Kai Kara France, Kai Kara France is very much like a journeyman. Like, he's a little bit older, he's been around for a while. He'll like win 2, lose 1, and he's rattled off a few wins here now. I don't see how he gets around Pantoja other than just like kind of knocking him out, which we have not seen happen to Pantoja for like 5 years now. And he's kind of going to be right up there in that, best one of the best flyweights of all time, right? One of the best 125ers of all time, like behind Demetrius Johnson, and he's kind of right around that Divison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno, Henry Cejudo range right now at 125. He's just so technical. He's kind of similar to both Charles and Topuria, where he can win however he wants. He can grind out a decision. He can submit you when he wants to. He's just, I think he's a way better point fighter as well than Kai Kara France. So I like Pantoja to defend his belt at 125, along with Ilia Topuria to end up being the lightweight champion. And then right before that is another banger at 125. This is our boy Joshua Van.
Our boy, yeah.
I was telling you about earlier. He will be a future 125 champ. He knocked out Bruno Silva earlier this month on the Marab Sean O'Malley card. So he'll be fighting Brandon Royval on short notice here. He knocked out Bruno Silva on June 7th. 2 days later, they announced that he accepted the fight against Royval. So they will
3 weeks?
Yeah, 3 weweeks. So June 28th will be Saturday.
Yeah, I love that. But.
He's 23 years old. He has 4 wins over the last 12 months. And now he's got a chance if he can beat Brandon. This is that's what this is. It's kind of a lose or a no lose, I should say, for Josh Van here. He's still 23 years old. He's taking this fight on 3 weeks notice. On 3 weeks notice. If he wins, it's like, holy crap, this kid.
Yeah.
If he says the right things on the mic, he probably gets a title shot next. If he loses, it's like, Brandon Royval is definitely a big step up. Royval's got win. The problem is I've always had trouble reading Royval fights for some reason. He's got wins over his last 2 wins are over Brandon Moreno and Tetsuya Taira, who I picked against him in both. I'm going to be picking him again. I'm all in on the Joshua Van hype train, even on 3 weeks' notice. I like Josh Van here. I think the line opened with him as a favorite. It moved to a pick'em, and now it's back to Josh Van as like -120, -125 or something favorite. So I like it's 3 really great fights at the top of the card. The problem is
just as a side, because you're talking about the turnaround between fights. One of the wild things about reading Mark Kriegel's Mike Tyson book was remembering how frequently Mike Tyson was fighting.
Oh, really?
In not just the lead up to winning the title. Like, in the lead up to winning the title, in 86, he fought, oh, my God, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 times.
In a calendar year?
In 1986.
Oh, my God.
13
And that's so crazy because
fights.
Now it's like it's almost absurd if a guy fights twice.
Correct.
In boxing
and that's the lead up to the 13th of those fights was the Berbick fight where he won the title. That's the year that he won the lineal heavyweight championship. That's not, a scratch. Now, he was very young, so you can argue, like, we do see this sometimes still from, like, 19, 20-year-old fighters. Mike Tyson was, like, 20 years old at this point. But in the year that he won the title, he fought 13 times in a calendar year. But then it's even crazier, because in the year after he won the title, if you include the Berbick fight, he fought 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times as the heavyweight champion of the world. Sorry, just was reminded of that when I was reading the Kriegel book, where we're talking about how nuts it is that the you're fighting 3 weeks later in the UFC.
And he was at that time he was young. He was 20 years old.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we do see this more frequently from up and coming young boxers. They just take any fight they can get whenever they can get it. But we already knew Mike Tyson was a star, just at an extraordinarily young age. It's wild.
That's why I love Josh Van. Like, because he's just taking fights. He's just fighting anybody. When we're kind of more so in the age now of, or at least people. Jon Jones is not ducking Tom Aspinall, but that's the thing everybody keeps saying. Jon Jones is near, he's close to 40. So, but anyway, that's the other problem with this card. There's zero star power. We're talking about Ilia Topuria. You're like, who are you talking about? And I'm telling you, he's one of the greatest fighters that that we've seen in recent history in MMA. This card is for MMA fans, and that's where people are having issues, is because this is also International Fight Week, and that used to, kind of mean something in the UFC and in MMA. Now it really means nothing. It's just kind of a throwaway in the promo and the commercials that we're going to see heading into the weekend. Like, get by 317 now. It's International Fight Week.
Yeah.
It used to be, this was always the biggest fight of the year. It was Jon Jones versus whoever. It was, like what this should have been was Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria. But instead, Dana let Islam Makhachev vacate the 155 belt, so he's moving up to 170. I don't think we even have a date for that one yet. And instead, Ilia Topuria is moving up, and he's a -500 favorite against Charles Oliveira, which evidently probably is more or less gonna look like an accurate line. It is, still -500 right now. Pantoja's -260. Josh Van down to -130. Money Moicano is on this card as well. He's just the one that last fought Islam Makhachev. He was the one who fought Islam on a day's notice when the guy he was supposed to fight fell off. So he's fighting the guy that he's supposed to fight now. Or he was supposed to fight Beneil Dariush. So I don't know. I love Money Moicano, so I'm looking forward to that one. And if you need plus odds on somebody, I like Hyder Emil on the prelims at +135. He's undefeated, but coming in as an underdog against a UFC newcomer, Jose Delgado. So I like the line doesn't really smell right to me. So I like Hyder Emil if you need some plus money there.
All right, enough of this.
And then elsewhere in UFC news, obviously, so UFC Baku was the first fight night where we have an undisputed.
Now's when you talk about Jon Jones.
We have an undisputed heavyweight championship change hands after a fight night for the first time. It was a pretty lame card overall. But that was the big news from Saturday night that Jon Jones has retired from the UFC. I think, I guess, I guess I won't be surprised either way. I can't really say that this will be the last time we see Jon Jones, in an MMA fight. Like, that was the thing I was looking at in his tweet was, I'm retired from the UFC, and that could, I wouldn't blame him for never fighting the UFC again. But, if the PFL comes to him and they somehow strike a deal against Francis Ngannou, like, that would be a monumental fight. And, it's always with Jon Jones, there is a bunch of
There's
sideshow.
another legal issue.
There's always other legal issues going on. So there was another everything alleged right now, hit and run in February that Jon Jones was involved in. Potentially other things going on that night. So, yeah. So that's just always murky waters with Jon Jones. But he does retire, and probably one of the greatest UFC champions.
Well, yeah, I mean that part is kind of undisputed. Like that, he's I think the greatest pound for pound fighter in UFC history. But
he was the youngest champion. How old was he?
Like it's just so sad that and look, this, as I've talked about before, is more difficult for me because I got to know Jon Jones really well. I'm not trying to pretend like I still know Jon Jones really well. I do not, but. For 5 or so years, I knew Jon Jones, and we did events together, and we would text, and he was regularly involved with charity stuff that I was doing, and it meant the world. But it's very sad for me that this became the story of Jon Jones. It's extraordinarily sad that he's never been able to escape this, that it's just always something. And he's kind of never seemed to find peace. And you thought that, maybe as he had his fighting comeback, that, perhaps peace would come with that. But there's just never been peace for Jon Jones. That part is... it's sad, and I'm not trying to project that he's a victim. He's not. He's made his own problems. It's a sad story. I'm not sad for him. I'm... empathetic, not sympathetic. It's a shame that a celebrated top athlete who was in ways at the time the most marketable athlete the UFC had ever had. Because it wasn't bogus. He was just that. What you were marketing was just how great he was. But then there was also, his family was cool. His 2 brothers were football players, and they always came to the ring together, and it felt kind of special. They were the sons of a preacher. There was a lot there, and we'll all remember that night, him walking out doing the Ray Lewis dance in the jersey in Baltimore, and it was as electric as anything other than the Gervonta fight that I've ever felt in that building, right? Just a bummer. Just a real bummer.
Yes, it is a bummer. Maybe it'll get cleared up. I mean, I guess we'll talk about all sides. His attorney did release a statement saying that he had nothing to do with this, but he's been cited for hit and runs in the past, so it's
and there's a phone call, and there's a whole.
There's plenty of.
I'm not enough of a legal expert to really want to dive into the conversation, but it don't seem great.
The other issue with Jon Jones' side is the way the UFC handled this, and that is Dana. The way the announcement was made is Jon Jones tweeted that he retired, and then in the post, and then there was a press conference after UFC Azerbaijan, where Dana announced that that Jones is gone, so the belt is vacated, and now and that Tom Aspinall is now the undisputed heavyweight champion.
So he had been the interim champion.
Correct.
So I assume that's just the way that it works. If in this scenario, because the shame is you would like to say now there's going to be a fight for the heavyweight championship. That's the way you would like to say it, but if you gave him an interim belt, then you're kind of required to recognize that.
And so it was 3 a.m. Baku time, and so it's also 3 a.m. He's from England. Tom Aspinall is. So he was bothered by this. I mean, I'm sure Tom was, but his dad started making comments, and he was furious about that. This is the way that they found out. They didn't know that it was at a press conference. They didn't give him a call or something to say, hey, you're now the champion.
Seems like the least.
Andy Aspinall very upset.
This is the least important part of this, right?
Because it should be about Jon Jones.
No, I mean, what? if somebody
because he hasn't fought in a year, and he's been waiting. He's trying to wait for Jon Jones.
If that's what
you're someone to fight.
If that's what you're angry about, then
and he's in the prime of his career.
The part where he found out he was the champion seems like the least important part of it. Like, there's if you want to be angry because you spent all this time hoping that you're going to get a Jon Jones fight, and now you're not getting it, fine. Like, but I would kind of say you're sort of angry at yourself.
For being a UFC fighter.
Like, that's the way this business works. Like, you decided to do it. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. You can't be surprised that this is how they do business.
He said, "For me, the heavyweight championship of an organization is quite a big thing, and I don't think Tom deserved to find out at a press conference in the middle of the night."
But what? Jon Jones announced he was retired, so that makes the interim champion the champion. What are they supposed to do?
Well, I guess they could have said he's still interim champ and he's going to have to defend the interim belt, and then what he had done before.
Was that what he would have preferred to have done?
I don't.
This is what I'm saying. The specific nature of being angry about that, like, I'm not ever going to defend Dana White, right? Ever, but like, there's no. Is he suggesting that Dana gets this message from Jon Jones and he says, "Get on a plane immediately so we may have a ceremony"? Like, what? What is the alternative?
I guess give him a personal phone call.
Say,
hey, man,
fine.
Jon retired. Congrats.
Yeah, okay, fine.
About to announce it.
I'm sure they would
happen to be in Azerbaijan, so that's where the announcement's happening.
I'm sure they wouldn't say something like. I'm sure they would just be totally. The next thing would be, it should be better than a FaceTime. You know, like, this is. The events happened the way they happened, and now you're the champ. Like, I don't think Lyndon Johnson wanted to find out he was president by watching John Kennedy get shot. You know what I mean? Like, I think he would have preferred becoming president by getting elected and, being sworn in on a dais, not on an airplane. But, like, this is the way that things go sometimes. I know I just made a comparison. It's sort of absurd, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, you became champion this way. What do you want to do about it? Do you want to not be champion? Because to your point, that could be the alternative.
Well, probably
you're not the champion.
I mean, I guess he's just trying to start leverage, some way that they can get more money.
I guess.
Blah blah blah. Whatever the next fight is. Hopefully, he fights out.
Right, we're spending too much time.
Big boxing weekend as well.
Is it?
Yeah, Jake Paul is fighting some guy.
Boxing.
This is the thing. Everybody's saying this is his first real fight now. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.
Yes, correct.
He's now 39 years old, but he's fought. This is like his 60th fight or 62nd fight. He's got 34 knockouts. He's a former WBC middleweight champion.
He was, but like,
so he
fought Mike Tyson. So he
also fought Canelo. That was back in 2017. He got destroyed. He literally lost like 12.
But wasn't that legally a fight where like there couldn't be a winner unless there was a knockout or something like that?
The Canelo fight.
Yeah.
I thought it did go. Maybe that was. I want to find his Mike Tyson fight now.
Julio Cesar Chavez's last fights were against UFC fighters. His last time he got into a ring was against Uriah Hall.
Well,
he apparently lost a boxing match to Anderson Silva.
Hey, Anderson Silva's talented. You know that. No.
He lost a boxing match to Anderson Silva 4 years ago.
Anderson Silva's talented. He's a talented, practitioner of the sport.
I'm trying to come up with the last time he won a fight against an actual fighter.
Yeah, David Zagara, right?
No, that's not an actual.
Just because he doesn't have a Wikipedia page doesn't mean that he's not a real person.
He beat a guy with 2 career fights in 2016. So he's got that going for him.
Brish?
Yeah, Bridge. That guy had 2 career fights. He's got that going for him. It looks like
he beat Brian Vera for the WBC Continental Super Middleweight title.
All right. So
Jake Paul's a massive favorite for anyone.
I'll give you that one. Well, I mean,
minus 700.
Even if it was a real fight.
This does feel like
a real fighter.
I guess I can't say first, but this does feel like a pretty kind of a bit of a failure of a card on Jake Paul's end here, because I thought that the Serrano-Taylor fight.
That's its own thing.
Yeah, that's his own thing. And that's actually really cool what they're doing, because it's an all women's card. It's going to be at MSG in 2 weeks. It's going to be on Netflix, so that'll be people will actually be able to watch it. This is I don't know. I don't understand this one, because this is going to be going on the same time as one of the UFC's banner events of the year. And we were just talking about it. There's nothing on July 4th weekend. Why if you're Jake Paul, why not try to grab that market?
I guess people think that's a big vacation weekend, so it's not a good
weekend
weekend for
every
doing that
weekend
stuff.
in the summer.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that, but I think that's a particularly big vacation weekend. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
We were having that conversation with somebody about moving the Belmont to the 4th of July because there's kind of Randy Moss, maybe. There's just nothing really going on the 4th of July other than Joey Chestnut, which let's show some respect. But I get it. I think the point might be there's a reason why there's not a lot going on the 4th of July, which is just these companies have realized it's not a good. I don't know. I don't have those answers.
Well, Jake Paul's never been shy of trying to push the mold. Anyway, Holly Holm will be boxing. She's 43 years old, and she will be making her boxing return.
I can't believe Holly Holm is only 43, to be honest.
She'll be fighting 29-year-old 10-0 Yolanda Vega.
Okay.
Holm is a massive favorite against the young Vega. Jake Paul will be walking around 11 p.m., give or take, if anyone cares.
I don't know why you would. There you go.
Oh, Deontay Wilder's fighting tomorrow night.
That is.
Yes, that'll be real boxing, man.
And where is that? That's like
that'll
somewhere.
Be in Wichita, I think?
Yeah, it's like somewhere
it's like
super random,
yeah,
and it's like on a random. It's not on DAZN or.
I think it's Prime pay-per-view.
I don't think it is.
It was something else Prime.
I think it's something BLK Prime. Yeah, something like that.
That's
where you're
different than Amazon.
Yes, that's definitely not Amazon Prime.
Oh, it's like a boxing thing. Okay.
Yeah.
BLK Prime Boxing. BP.
Yeah,
boxing.
Very weird. That made me wonder, is Deontay Wilder washed? Are we just...
Well...
Are we done?
He hasn't fought in a year.
I know,
and
but...
he lost to Zhilei Zhang, the Chinese guy.
But don't we think that Zhilei Zhang's kind of a fighter?
Yeah, he is a fighter. Wilder's a massive favorite over this guy, Tyrell Herndon. Or Herndon? Herndon, yeah, Herndon. He's minus 1800.
God, I guess it really has been years since he won a fight that was relevant.
He should be walking out around 11 o'clock tomorrow night.
Jesus Christ. Maybe we are. Maybe Deontay Wilder's about to face Jake Paul. Christ.
Yeah, maybe
that's a bummer.
They're now going to be on the same schedules.
God, we were so excited about
Deontay
Wilder.
is going to kill Jake Paul, though, if they were to fight. So he won't fight Jake Paul. Or Jake Paul won't fight Deontay Wilder.
Did Tyson Fury just, end...
I don't think
Deontay Wilder? Is it just over because of Tyson Fury that he'll never be able to be a guy anymore?
No, I don't want to say that. I mean,
wild,
he is.
Dude. It is wild.
39. I still have a lot of respect for Deontay Wilder.
I have a lot.
I mean, you just look at him and he's a scary looking dude.
Yeah, he's a scary looking dude. I agree with that, but I just guess I didn't realize it's probably just over for Deontay Wilder.
His last win, his last win was 2022, knockout of Robert Helenius.
Yeah,
and he lost a decision to Joe Parker, and then got knocked out in the 5th round, a TKO technically.
Yeah, I think it's just
to Zhilei Zhang.
Done. It is what it is. He's also 39, right? This is.
He's had a really great career.
He has. I'm not debating that. I'm not saying Deontay Wilder was never good. I'm saying it's just over. And I didn't realize it was just over for Deontay Wilder because I don't spend that much time thinking about him.
ESPN Plus card as well tomorrow night from Quebec City.
Enjoy.
And since I guess we'll be away, the Serrano-Taylor fight is July 11th. I'm not sure if we'll have... Or I guess I'll be back. Yes, I'll be able to do Fighting Words then.
I don't know what we're doing. We'll figure that out.
Okay, we don't know.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. All right, very good. That's Fighting Words.
PFL Friday night as well.
Sure. That's Fighting Words.
Several former UFC fighters.
Sure there are. Anything else?
Rodrigo Nascimento, Sergio Pettis, Alexander Romanov. Looks like a marshmallow.
CountySports.zone is where you find everything you need to know about high school sports. Any news throughout the summer they'll have for you. They'll still get you ready for football season. CountySports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer. BuyAToyota.com.
Kevin Lee unfortunately lost last week.
Oh, huge bummer. We'll come back in. We'll wrap it up.
Massive
Tidbit, tubular. That's next. Glenn Clark Radio. Feeling sluggish, unfocused, or not like yourself? It could be low testosterone. At Game Day Men's Health, we specialize in testosterone replacement therapy to help men boost energy, improve mood, and regain confidence. Our treatments, including testosterone cypionate, are safe, natural, and tailored to fit your lifestyle with weekly injections or pellet therapy. Get started today with a free testosterone test and feel the difference. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Game Day Men's Health, where men reclaim their game.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Need a trophy or award that's as unique as the achievement? Look no further than Crown Trophy. With locations in Owings Mills and Gaithersburg, they specialize in custom trophies, plaques, and medals for any occasion. From sports and academic awards to employee recognition and corporate gifts, visit crowntrophy.com today and let them help you create a lasting memory for your school, team, or business. Crown Trophy is a proud supporter of the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association. crowntrophy.com.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, we celebrate the first ever Baltimore basketball player to reach the Naismith Hall of Fame as we talk to those who knew Carmelo Anthony best about how his Baltimore upbringing shaped his legendary career. Also inside, Bo Smoka profiles Ravens second-round pick Mike Green, and find our annual summer travel section with information on some of the best sporting events and activities in Maryland that your family can check out all summer long. Press Box is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores. Or you can read the entire issue online at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can also find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps.
Calling all athletes and families, don't miss Football versus Football, a free sports and wellness festival Saturday, July 19th from 10 to 6 at Baltimore Peninsula. Meet retired Ravens, other former NFL stars, and pro soccer players. Join youth sports clinics, get free health screenings, and enjoy food, music, and family fun. Powered by United Healthcare, presented by Sports Legacy Group, and supported by University of Maryland Orthopedics and 1-800-GAMBLER.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, winding down for a Thursday edition of GCR. Why don't we go ahead and get a tidbit? What you got?
Most first-round picks of all time by a school, NBA.
Most first-round picks. I mean, you're inclined to say Duke because there's been so many modern, but you forget that the Duke rise only started. Kentucky.
Kentucky is number 1. 60 first-round draft picks.
Is that it?
It'd
be great if it was. It'd be great if that was it. It's 12-29.
You guess who number 2 is?
North Carolina.
No, they're 3rd.
Kansas.
They're 5th.
Duke.
Duke is 2nd, yes. Right. And then round out the top 5 for me. One more.
It's still somehow UCLA.
It is.
Yeah. There you go. Tidbit was brought to you by the print issue of Press Box, which is available. We brought it up earlier, Muggsy, when we were talking about Muggsy Bogues, so I think we've covered it. Go get it.
Okay, everybody, it's going to be quick today.
What was the main focus today, Coach?
Fundamentals, ball control. It's always huge.
Any early thoughts on the competition this year?
Well, look, this is the best of the best players in the world. It's going to be an amazing tournament.
Tournament?
Yeah, the BMW Championship at Caves Valley. What are you guys talking about? All they ever ask me about is football.
Right now, if you want to watch the Norfolk Tides without Samuel Basayo, of course. Maybe he'll pinch hit.
John LaRoche trying to say Jon Jones ducked that guy, and now he retires. Lame.
Maybe
he did, but also it's Jon Jones. He doesn't really need to. He can do whatever he wants. The reason he can't, we actual UFC fans, like maybe MMA fans, want to see him fight. Obviously, it's Jon Jones. You want to see him fight.
Right.
But for people that aren't die-in-the-wool MMA fans, it does nothing for his legacy. If
I don't think it does anything.
A guy named Tom Aspinall.
I don't think it really does anything for his legacy either way. Like, if he loses, he lost at the tail end of his career. That's typically the way that it works. So in that way, if you want to say,
I think he takes a lot lot of pride in that never lost.
But that's not even technically true.
Well,
he did lose.
But
I get
he can at least always say, "Well, I didn't."
Yeah, I never lost. Really lost. Like, if that's something that he cares about, then he can care about it. But in the real world, if he had lost a fight to Tom Aspinall at the end of his career, it wouldn't change anything about the career he had. His off the field problems did impact his career, and being able to stockpile and put up gaudy numbers and all that sort of s. Oh, good. Looks like it's been a good day for Cade Povich. Yikes. Norfolk Tides are playing Gwinnett on Masson right now, and they're down 4-0. And Cade
Povich is only at 38 pitches, though.
He's still in the game, so he's given up all 4 runs.
Beautiful look at Harper Park.
They don't have a hit yet. So
they got that in common. Well, they haven't.
They haven't had a lot of at-bats, I agree. It's not quite an Orioles situation. MLB Network, Mariners, Twins 110, Braves, Mets 710. MLB TV, the free game is Rays, Royals at 210. NBA Draft Round 2 tonight at 8 o'clock on ESPN. Maybe there's an outside chance that Juju Reese hears his name called. But
teams are smart, yeah.
Yeah. Amazon Prime Video for Sparks Fever at 7, then Mystics Aces at 10. TBS and True TV, a friendly between Ireland and the U.S. women at 9 o'clock. TNT, the FIFA Club World Cup, Juventus and Man City at 3. It's also on True TV. And, of course, TNT has AW Collision tonight at 8. DAZN, Club World Cup, my kid's favorite team, Wydad, against Al Ain at 3 o'clock. Al Hilal and Pachuca at 9 o'clock. And RB Salzburg, Real Madrid at 9 o'clock. Round 1 of the PGA Rocket Classic at 3 o'clock on Golf Channel. Access TV for TNA Impact at 8.
For people with taste, there is a new episode of Poker Face today on Prime Video.
God, if you hate yourself.
And
I did watch the
finale.
first couple episodes of The Bear last night.
I thought you were going to say season 2 of.
No, I certainly will not be watching that. It's encouraging from what was just a dreadful season last year. Encouraging. I was very worried because the word was they shot both seasons at once. That like this one was going to be awful too.
So you're thinking they might have saved all the good episodes?
I would say that it's a better start to this one. Still a long way to go. And they're flirting with something that to me makes a whole boatload of sense, and I'm not really sure. I've said this before. I think The Bear became a worse show when they decided to go with this high-end restaurant instead of just making it about the Beef Shack. And I think they're flirting with how they might be aware of that too. That's all.
Season 4 finale of Welcome to Wrexham on FX tonight, and then Hulu.
It's a great show.
And Jeremy Allen White. Fortunately, we can't do the bit because it's just Jeremy Allen White on Fallon.
He's also the musical guest.
Oh, he is?
Yeah,
okay, that would make sense. You know what?
Yeah, he's playing Eddie Vedder doing Save It for Later. There actually hasn't really been. I'm only 2 episodes in, but there hasn't really been any like notable music so far in the fourth season of The Bear.
Heidi Klum and Emma Stone will be on Diego Luna Live because that's what they're changing the name.
They are plugging the reboot of American Gladiators.
Again, a second duo to do that this week.
Yeah, people are very excited about it, Griffin.
It's also CMA Fest on ABC. Live from Nashville, hosted by your favorite country stars, Cody Johnson and Ashley McBride.
I've definitely heard of those people. I feel like I've heard of Ashley McBride, maybe.
That one did sound a little bit familiar, but Cody Johnson. I mean, that could be anyone.
Isn't he a pitcher in the Orioles system?
Yeah,
right. Like, God. All right, that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Very good. Thanks today to Bob Nightengale. Thanks also to Muggsy Bogues, as well as to Jacob Calvin Meyer. We'll get it up in the greatest hits section of the tab at glennclarkradio.com. Tomorrow on the program, Stan will be back. Orioles Chief Marketing Officer Mark Fine. We talked earlier in the week about the story of how they're tinkering with the game day experience, and he's going to join us to tell us a little bit more about that and what they're trying to accomplish. And Russell Dorsey from Yahoo Sports and Apple TV. Talk some more trade deadline with him.
And we'll head down to Norfolk, and we will catch up with Cameron Weston of the Norfolk Tides.
Can't blame him for not getting any hits. Not his fault. Thanks, everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including the Maryland 5-Star, Live Casino and Hotel Maryland, Game Day Men's Health, BMW Championship, Crown Trophy, Easy Pass, Baltimore's Classic 5 Golf Courses, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, Costas Inn, Maryland Sports, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Thursday evening. Go nobody. No. Go nobody. Duke sucks.